A little bit.
A lot of people want to make a parking lot.
Hey, sunshine.
Well,
How you doing?
Oh, what are you doing?
Why you couldn't tell?
I saw this on
Yeah. More things.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm excited about it.
You can side parking.
Trying to put pictures on it.
Yeah, I wish it was in the back. Though. I mean,
You want me to go cut one real quick?
Oh,
Yeah.
I have enough time to
We
print it.
were thinking, especially with
I'll make sure.
the smaller.
Packet.
That helped me out. Want to share?
See more of the business.
You got pictures and everything?
Yeah, I
We've
got
got
the
the
whole
whole
packet.
printed packet. Is that okay?
It's fine.
If you let me know ahead of time, I'll print you one out.
I know.
You
I
can-
spoke
Can't remember.
Yeah, I read.
I didn't grab one. I didn't read it.
Take this.
Looks.
Sir, how are you
Have it up
doing?
here of eating Thai food.
Kid.
Yes, you can. That is my nickname.
I bought the worst pen in the world
Thank you,
here.
ma'am. I really appreciate that.
I have to borrow a pen.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah. Oh, you should. Oh, you want to see how the process is pulled out the last few days. Well, yeah,
Doing like gutting it inside.
it's getting gutted right now. Unfortunately, I guess at one point there was a, I guess. it
Ooh,
was
and
a
they do have
murder
their topo lines on there as well.
Sprinters. They would get reduced sprint if they took care of the property. After the hurricane. Oh, it had roof damage from before. Yeah. The inside of the house was not taken care of properly after the hurricane, so. Luckily, there's no structural issues, it's just.
Good about it. When you get it dim wood, you got everything right, you take care of it.
Yeah, so much mold.
For those of you that weren't here at the very beginning, in that packet that I gave you, there's two citizen comment letters. One I received about an hour ago and one I got, I forget the last. That's one, and I got about an hour ago. This is the last page of this one.
But it doesn't look like it's actively growing.
You get on the ladder, roots and stuff.
Oh, there was some of that in the storage building in the back. But there's no
Yeah,
central
20, it's
AC
25,
in it.
160.
There's just
Parking.
Yeah.
So,
Bartik's coming, Steve, are you not? Bartik.
yeah, the roof is getting done. Luckily, the framework, everything is still good there. So kind of fun surprises too. That house, when we first got it, it's way older than we thought it was. And now we think it's actually from the late 20s. There was a.
She thinks that building maybe
I
it's
told
like
them
20s. I just gave it
we've
to
been able
her.
to
I
walk
didn't
up
think anything was.
to see what we were doing and see how it's in the size. I missed the conversation. It's really nice. And
Rick Nicole,
he
when
said his grandfather
question, so
helped build
a couple times back in the last time, it was
that
like,
were there.
public hearing, I'll read the full deal, but then when you come over here.
You don't have to.
Consideration, just read.
Yeah, and I apologize for a while. I was reading out the whole thing, but then it was communication. So
Which is what I was thinking. We opened up the door where the bathroom was and the foundation or beams or whatever, it's sitting on it. It's river rocks and stuff. It's old. It was. I know, Steve got up in the attic and he took a bunch of pictures and I stuck my head up there too. And there was slats.
I do not carry around personal
I carry a Sharpie, a pencil, and a pen.
Like if we wanted to open it up all the way, the ceiling, instead of having because the ceilings, it's like 9'3". But if we opened it up all the way, the ceilings are that tall in there. I knew when I first saw it, I was like, this house is older than 50, something's up.
Well, I knew it was 30.
Yeah, there's a possibility it's late 20s. When we looked inside there, some of the stuff we're finding. Well, you know what's interesting?
Whatever's easy.
Our guy John. We're probably have to fix a couple things, but we're doing that, we have to do ADA, because the unit's changing on it. And
I think we're ready.
you can see the ceiling, there's paint, there's this baby paint. And he goes, you got one of the DuPont help. And I said, we were talking about it. There's the DuPont family. They
Glad you're working.
here on the island and we had that.
Thank you.
Apple.
We're going to call to order the City of Port Aransas Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Tuesday, March 29, 2022 at 5:02 p.m. Public hearing tonight, we have item number 1, FPLT 22-000206. Final Platapalmia PUD Unit 6A being at 21.58 acres of land out of the Isaac W. Boone Survey, abstract number 43, certificate number 241, and the Edward Hall Survey, abstract number 160, certificate number 227, and being a portion of a 143.109 acre tract of land described as Tract 2 and a special warranty deed from HCB Beach, Texas LLC to KM Beach LLC, recorded in document number 201-300-7798, official public records in Nueces County, Texas. Applicant KM Beach LLC, property location 3900 Highway 361. Item number 2, FPLT-000207, final plat of Palmia Beach PUD Unit 6B, being a 13.14 acres of land out of the Edward Hall Survey, abstract number 160, certificate number 227, and being a portion of a 143.109 acre tract of land described as Tract 2 and a special warranty deed from HCB Beach, Texas LLC to KM Beach LLC, recorded in document number 201-300-7798. Official public records in Nueces County, Texas. Applicant KM Beach LLC, property location 3900 Highway 361. Item number 3, Flex 22-000535. Flexible development request. Property owner is requesting a reduction of lot frontage requirement and the allowance of a private street. Applicant Kelby McCann, property location 711 East Avenue B and 12th Street. Moving on to citizen comments and reports. At this time, comments will be taken from the audience on any subject matter. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, the Planning and Zoning Commission may not discuss or take action on any item that has not been posted on the agenda. Yes, ma'am. Okay, let's back up. Yes, ma'am.
Speak on an agenda item, but I wanted to just go ahead and get this part over with. Hello, my name is Kathy Fulton, and I'm at PO Box 457, Port Aransas, Texas 78413. I'm here to render an opinion about the flex unit development request. One of the first things that's missing from here is one of the few minimum requirements of our codes says that it is supposed to show how development will deviate from the current codes as they are written. And this did not show any of the quote deviations. That's number one thing. Number two, it appears that there is a road, the quote private road or whatever you want to call it, that would be encroaching on the Kite property. Because of where it's going, it would be encroaching on Kite's property. That's just a given. I just went over there and measured again. So we're not apparently looking at everything here. There's not enough information in this flex unit development to even have a reasonable idea of where this could go with this. And I think that this is a no. Thank you.
Do you have a street address, Ms. Fulton?
I'm unclear which one it is right now.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I'm fixing to
I know.
go back over another place.
Gotcha.
Chairman, I'm confused. I want to speak to the agenda item. Is that now or later?
The agenda item would be during the citizen comments, and if you're an applicant, then you can speak during your agenda item.
Okay, I just want to do citizen comments on an agenda item.
Perfect. That's directly after this.
Is that right now?
Yes, sir.
No, sir. Right now, it's just the public hearing on the 3 public.
You're welcome to
hearings.
make any comments about anything you like on any matter right now. And then you're also welcome to speak at the agenda item specifically. So,
It's just public
Okay,
hearing.
right.
Not.
right. I'm sorry. Right now, it's just the public hearing.
I thought you already asked for citizens. Do any other citizens have any comments on the public hearing items?
Backed up. That's it.
So it's just the.
Yes, my name is William Daly. I live at 619 East Avenue B. And I have a couple questions here I'm hoping you will look into. The proposed extension of 12th Street runs across Ken Kite's property. I would hope that you could see some evidence that there exists an existing easement to access that property for that street. I certainly didn't see it. And the community purpose, public or community purpose, I fail to see anything. Mr. McCann claims that we won't have to fix his street for 15 years. Well, maybe in 15 years we'll have to fix it, but that's not going to cost us anything, at least till then. So I'd say this application falls short of the sole stating the community purpose to which it's supposed to apply. That we get 3 more STR lots in there, it's not a benefit. It's a disadvantage. This area is prone to flooding and has no city storm drains and floods with water ponding in the street. The property across the street to the south, Mrs. Wavell Brown, is forced to act as a retention pond for the area, as is the property to the northwest that belonged to Ed and Rita Reed. Draining this 40,000 development into this bowl is going to exacerbate an already bad situation. And 14 foot to the south and west in the middle of the proposed street is a sewer main that's underwater when it's flooded. In extending a FUD to the developer, the city would be saying that the property is suitable for a subdivision, and section 21-163 would come into play, and that's effects on downstream drainage areas. And it says specifically that no subdivision shall be approved unless adequate drainage will be provided to an adequate drainage watercourse or facility. Mr. McCann needs to follow the rules. The initial intent of the FUD was to allow more affordable housing. We're long past the time when that can be accomplished. What this proposal does is allow for more STRs at varying price points. That is not a community benefit. And as a refresher in looking up subdivision, it's anything, including a FUD, that allows a tract to be turned into more than 2 parts, lots, or sites. Now, this is including condominium regimes. So any of the subdivision, all the subdivision requirements have to apply. We have a problem with flooding there. I have no idea how to solve it, but you take that into consideration when you think about this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Daly.
I am one half of the aforementioned Ed and Rita Reed. I live at 644 Lantana. I have one question and then a possible concern. Question I know you can't answer, but it's out there. There's short-term rentals on this lot. I thought by looking at the city zoning map, this is R1. So I didn't know that he could do short-term rentals on it. The second one, the concern that I have is just what Mr. Daly was explaining. And can I? This is the flooding.
I'll pass them around.
Thank you. Page 1 is my yard, which is directly between Bo and Susie Julian, which used to be I.B. McGee's old house. And the page 2 is looking towards the proposed development. It would be immediately to the right of all of that. There's nowhere else for that water to go except to the beach. The city a long time ago put some pipes in through the sand dunes, but they fill up with sand all the time. It doesn't drain. So it's either to Avenue B or into my yard. Those are my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
My name is Wavell Brown, and I live at 116
Good.
12th Street.
Could you do that once again at the mic, please, for the record?
Oh, Wavell Brown, 116 12th. And I'm the other place where all the water goes. I'm directly across where, if Mr. McCann is here, directly across where you're going to build whatever that is. I can't tell you how this corner is. Been there since the 70s. This corner is a busy little corner. 12th, my property comes out on 12th, even though my driveway's on Avenue B. And so that corner is really busy. It's hard for me to imagine 6 units being there, which means there's probably like 12 thin trash can things. It means that how many cars with all of these, even the little carts can't go around that corner without falling over. My yard, or the lot in front of me that belongs to me, stays flooded when it rains like that. Just like the pictures that Ed showed you, it stays, the water stands there forever. And there isn't any place for it to go. And he's right, the sewage is underneath that. It's interesting because I didn't realize that we could have one kind of zoning on one side of the street and another one on the other side. And what that means is somebody can build like a little Walmart across the street, and then I have to deal with the detritus from that. That means all the trash, all the crap that goes on my side of the street, even though I can't build anything. And it didn't dawn on me until I was thinking about this. Why don't we in this town have areas designated for short-term rentals? And that's all you have. Just like, we have an area that's just all short-term rentals, and then a big chunk of the city is left to be neighborhoods, which we have been for a long time. We have been a really wonderful neighborhood. A lot of people walk around there. We do bird watching. Since they're empty lots, there's a lot of activity. Too many coyotes for me, but really very nice. And we're looking at watching this piece be destroyed. And I'm sorry, I think it's destroyed for nothing other than unapologetic greed. I mean, we're just trying to put as many units on that to make as much money as we can. And I can't do that on my side of the street, but I just get the fallout from what's happening across the street. Now you tell me, and Mr. McCann, you tell me if you would like to live where I'm living now with that stuff across the street. And the rest of you all need to think about it before somebody builds something across the street from you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
One more time.
Yes, sir.
Be able to speak at 1.9 later, or do I need to do it now?
We need
What?
to do it now. Do you want them to talk during agenda item topic?
That's fine. I'm just asking. I don't want to miss my.
Does he need to wait?
Everybody will be, make sure everybody speaks.
Yes, 4.9 will either be during the citizen comments, or you said we can do it during the agenda item too.
Citizen comments can be anything about anything.
So,
Right.
because the
What
public
Mike
hearing,
is-
the
what
public
Mike is
hearing is
asking.
just these 3 items right here. So
Okay.
if you're the 3 items that we're talking about now are those
When
3.
you get to that.
You got it.
That's what we used to do it, but I just want to make sure. I
Sure.
miss my spot.
Everybody will have a chance to be heard, so.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Turcott. I own a house at 305 Avenue J. Most of you might know me. I've spoken here last summer, and I've been more political in Port Aransas than I've ever been in my life, because I come from Avenue J from 1957 to 2022. And now there's 7 little square boxes across the street from us built by a developer. And there's others, new condos being built over on the other side of us. And in other words, from 1957 to now, we're totally surrounded and there's no help for us. So since Hurricane Harvey, I've lived with my companion at Wavell Brown's son's house. So I look out my bathroom window and I sit on my porch and I look at Mr. McCann's, how do you say your name? McCann. Mr. McCann's proposed development. I know for a fact that the drainage there, and all of you know that, I know that all you men that I'm looking at, and I know you do. So I don't need to sit here and preach to the choir, right? Everybody knows that floods from across Mr. Ed Reed's lot from his yard into Wabel Brown's front pasture. I call it a pasture because I'm a country girl, but I look at it every day for the past 4 years. I'm heartbroken. I feel like it's the last of the Mohicans. If Mr. McCann should, and probably will, because I see the handwriting on the wall, there's people in this board or what are y'all are commissioners, is that what y'all are considered? That are building little square boxes on little tiny lots as we speak. Everybody knows where and who. I'm really sorry that it's come to that, but if Mr. McCann does go through with his development, with whatever it is, I hope it has some integrity. I hope it has some imagination. It's in Old Town. There's a reason why it's called Old Town. It's not New Town. It's not Pamela. It's not Sunflower. It's not that other place that's going to take over. I could give a rat's about those places these days. I'm just trying to protect something, some integrity. Everybody knows the story of the last Mohicans, right? Yes, everybody knows. If there's going to have to be development, y'all better figure out the drainage, and I understand there's no drainage plan with this plan. The noise, the lights, the animals that will be displaced, it will be the last of the Mohicans. And Charlie's pasture will meet the same demise eventually. It'll have another little neighborhood full of little square pink, purple, yellow houses, and then it'll have a trailer park. In front of the trailer park, it's going to have some storage, and then it's going to have, and Charlie's pasture will be gone. I'm not near as nervous as the first time I spoke here, but my passion is very strong and true. That's all I have to say. I hope that y'all have some integrity in what you're going to decide. And I wish Mr. Lorette was here.
Thank you, Mr. Turcott.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Anybody else like to speak to the 3 public hearing items?
Hi there. Luke Daly, 619 East Avenue B. I'd like a little extra time if I need it. I have 2 messages from my neighbors who couldn't be here. First one is my next door neighbor, Mr. Welder. And
They have that.
they have that. Yeah, but
He
I'm
sent
gonna read
me.
it. Because he added something to this that I'm handing in. He cannot be here tonight. And I'll read it straight off my phone. To the members of the City of Port Aransas Planning and Zoning Committee, I am Smithy Welder, 639 East Avenue B. This week I am visiting friends in Florida and unable to attend this meeting. I cordially request that these comments be read at your meeting today. I have been coming to Port Aransas all of my life, and I have been living here for the past 3 years. I am alarmed at the rapid development on all parts of the island, and especially the dramatic increase in building on small lots throughout the city and Old Town. The flexible unit development idea seems counterproductive and adds to the increased stress on an already challenged municipality. In this particular application, the addition of a private access road onto Avenue B will create dangerous conditions for the same hilly street that has no sidewalks and is popular to pet walkers, bicyclists, and pedestrians. I share the concerns of other citizens in our community that feel the immediate need to slow down our rampant development and create a more sustainable approach when it comes to preserving what's left of our small town charm. And that was from William Smithy Welder. The other letter is from Kendra Landralt, 527 Lantana Drive. As a resident of Lantana and a mother of school-aged children attending Port Aransas Independent School District, I am opposed to granting a flexible unit development to Kelby McCann. My main concern is increased traffic on a street with no sidewalks. In addition, I witnessed constant stop sign violations in front of my house and excessive speeds. Kendra Landau. Lantana Street. And then my own comments. The first thing in any flexible unit development is that it shows a public benefit. This would be far from a public benefit. It would be a public detriment, especially to the existing neighbors. And
Are we resetting because it's multiple?
You're the chairman.
Go ahead and finish.
the reasons are drainage. For too long, the city has looked askance and not paid attention when one neighbor floods another neighbor's property. I've been told by people who are architects that this is not legal under Texas codes. Second one is traffic, as my neighbors have mentioned. The third one, and as another detriment to the public, is increased garbage, noise, lights, and that would be from short-term rentals. The worst thing about flexible unit developments is it allows a developer to get around rules that are supposed to protect the neighbors. None of these neighbors had any kind of a notice that this was coming. I thought anyone within a certain distance of a property was supposed to be told when something important like this was happening in their neighborhood. There's so much wrong with this. There's so much wrong with what's happening in Port Aransas with people trying to dodge the rules just to make another buck. And it's hurting the existing people. Most of the time when these places get built, there's someone buys it for investment. They never live there. There's constant people in and out, and it's not conducive to a community. So this, once again, short-term rentals do not provide a community benefit. Nothing but a community detriment. I hope you'll listen to the rest of my neighbors. I hope you will not allow someone to put a private road across someone else's property. I think that having seen surveyors there 5 or 6 times at that corner shows that there is something interesting going on there, and that maybe there's not a big right of way there. Maybe there's not an easement that turns 12th Street into a through road. And finally, Mr. McCann already owns an adjoining parcel, which he has been granted a flexible unit development, and could easily be changing the way all this is set up to make it really and truly meet city codes, not the ones he says they meet. Thank you.
Thank you. Any-
He's such a happy little
He
bee.
needs a head timer. That's what he needs.
Nicole, Mr. Weller's note was read by her.
Correct.
So that one's.
My name is Cecilia Fox, and I reside at 606 Lantana. It's a corner house, and it probably has the lowest elevation in the neighborhood. It's not an adjoining property to the part that they're talking about, but eventually waters do come from that area in my direction. I have constant flooding problems, not just flooding, but water on the ground floor of part of my home. I'm strongly opposed to granting a flexible unit development that will further increase drainage issues in this area. There seems to be no concern or consideration to established existing residences. My home built in the early 1960s. You must address drainage issues and allowances for excessive fill in properties before any changes or construction is allowed. This is what I see as a very big problem here, with everybody putting in pools in their yards, and they are raising their yards by 3 feet. And I had drainage problems before, and now they are just horrible. I mean, the flooding. This is excavation of the pools. Okay. In the 50 years before all of this filling and all of this came in, our lowest area was probably flooded perhaps 3 times. And it is now a yearly occurrence in the past 5-6 years. You really need to address the infrastructure first. Increased density is increased problems of all sorts. Besides the ecological destruction of the wetland areas in our neighborhood is a priority also. And also the city, there are rules in place, and the city needs to enforce these rules and laws in place and not to allow exceptions and agree to variances to the detriment of all the surrounding properties. And we are talking about Old Town. They come to you, the developers, they come to you in the pretext of affordable housing, when in essence, it's all about the money, as we all know. Rental property, and I don't care whether it's short or long-term, that's what it will turn into. It's all going to turn into rental property and trying to make a buck. And the developers probably aren't even going to live there. And, you know, and we're left to cope with all the bad stuff that comes with it. Packing density is not the answer to anything, especially in a small confined space. I've got one more sentence, I think, Rick. Okay. It's horrifically problematic, it's unattractive, and it's dangerous. And for this reason, I'm strongly opposed to the developer's interest in creating this new, I don't know, so-called whatever it is, something for the public good, which it's not. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Anybody else in the public hearing?
Would everybody who's supposed to adopt school unit development, please stand up?
Citizen comments and reports. This time, comments will be taken from the audience on any subject matter. Please limit comments to 3 minutes in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. The Planning and Zoning Commission may not discuss or take action on any item that has not been posted on the agenda. I did have one to read here from Mr. Richard Watson. Timer me? Good morning. We will be unable to attend Friday's P&Z meeting in person and would appreciate you forwarding this P&Z members today so they have time to evaluate these comments. This concerns McCann's Agape Cove. Please read this into the public record. Thank you. Option C is the only reasonable option, and the evidence amply supports the statement. Drainage and safety are our primary concerns. Drainage. Water will drain from the project to the nearby almost ever-present lake that blocks Avenue B. As it fills with water every time it rains, this is known as a local low, and there's not too much you can do to adequately fix it. Yes, the city put an asphalt coating on top of it recently. The pond is the lowest point and so becomes the catchment basin. There are numerous local lows in PA, mostly in undeveloped tracts. They commonly hold water even when the rest of Port Aransas is bone dry. In a reasonably heavy rain, it is common to have a 1.5 foot depth. Don't be fooled when the applicant says if you pick option A or B, the added concrete surface, a mere 764 square feet, taking all 6 units into account, will have a significant effect. Safety. Option C is the only option that will put fire trucks to turn around on the new road. Please take a quick drive by the recently completed condo near the corner of 12th Street and Avenue G, formerly the Kennisburg property. It's across from the Beachcomber Motel. One look up their driveway will show you that it is impossible for a fire truck to turn around. Their driveway street is too narrow and the buildings are too close. Since the predominant wind during the winter is often from the northeast and the rest of the year from the southeast, it is imperative at this location, more than most, have an adequately wide driveway for ingress egress. Recall how the fire at private road ABCD spread so quickly, destroying 7 homes, if memory serves, just a few years ago. Do not be fooled. 1, by a claim that 700 square feet will fix everything. 2, that option C is in any way a gift from the developer. They pay for the road, not the city. Again, hawking the small permeable basin should supersede common sense. Safety, number 3, safety is a is enhanced if the city builds the roads, as it will include a much-needed right-of-way, which is not the case if the road is built by the developer. Number 4, the applicant is wanting the largest possible lots, which gives him a much greater return on his investment. However, the sales pitch for concept C lists smallest lots. However, there's an ample lot size to build nice house. Their lots are all over 5,000 square feet. We have personally visited the site, confirmed this. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration on this matter. Betsy A. Tour guide, Richard L. Watson. And Nicole, I think you've got a list of.
So everybody that already spoke, I'm gonna skip on the list. If you guys want to speak again about a different agenda item topic, you're more than welcome. So first, we've got John Christensen.
Afternoon, committee members. I'm John Christensen. I live at 531 Channel Vista in Port Aransas. During the time that I've lived here, I've had several different addresses. I've lived in several different parts of the city, not so much in Old Town, but I've been around there quite a bit. First of all, I want to say I have a very deep respect for the people who have lived in Port Aransas most of their lives. And I know Barney Farley has. I don't know how many more of you have. I've been here 31 years, and we've been building houses most of the time since we got here. Some of the little boxes that I've heard described that some of you live in, we built several of those. When we first got here, 5,000 feet per building site was required. The city council changed that and it became something different, and now it's been changed back again. So we've seen a lot of changes that have been made by the city council. I'm here specifically right now. I want to talk about the setback issue that you're going to discuss later. My old pappy told me a long time ago, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, the houses that we've been building all these years meet the side yard, the rear yard, and the front yard setbacks. And we don't try to encroach into any of those areas and do something that's not supposed to be done. There are sprinkler systems in those areas. Some people put parking in them. People put swimming pools in the backyards. And I know there's a lot of contention right now in the city among people who don't want to see the swimming pools because they think that brings more people, more tourists, and it makes a greater short-term rental problem. So I don't see any reason to change any of those setback requirements or what can be put in those setbacks. It just doesn't make any sense. What's it going to benefit if somebody doesn't have a pool? And what does it hurt if somebody does put a pool in their backyard? I don't see the sense in it. So when you come to that issue this afternoon, I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in. And again, I want to say I have a very deep respect for the people who don't want to see change, but we've seen a lot of it, and I don't think we're going to stop it. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, John.
You probably made your.
So I've got
I'm the one that you built the little square boxes across.
Chad Crow.
That's my sister. She doesn't speak.
Stop.
Gracious.
Go on. All right, Chad.
Hi, my name's Chad Crow, box 382, live over on South Gulf Street with my son Francis. I'm actually here to speak for Francis. I would have brought him, but he's 3, and whatever everybody gets into wouldn't be anything compared to what he would get into if he were here. So I'll speak on his behalf. But I am here to talk about the setbacks. And if you'll allow me to digress for just a second and get a tiny bit emotional. I moved my family here 2 years ago, and when Francis was a little bit over 1, and of course, this is like heaven on earth for a little kid growing up in a place like this. I can't imagine what it'd been like to have been a kid here. But some of you may know, late last year, my wife passed away, and so now it's just me and Francis. But anyway, it's been remarkable how we came from Austin, and we came down here a lot, and it's just been really remarkable how supportive the people at Trinity have been, the people at the church, just our neighbors, and slowly it just was a very organic thing that we came down here to visit and said it was time to go home, and then we went home. And at one point, I looked at him and I said, "No, we got to go back. Home's not Austin anymore." And it was because of all the people here, and I'm really glad we made that decision. But anyway, he's a water baby, and he loves swimming. He loves being in the ocean. He loves being in the pool, and we're planning on putting in a pool. And it's been brought to my attention that now that might not be a possibility, or what we were planning on might not be a possibility if these setback rules are changed. I mean, emotions aside, I mean, I look at it as, we bought our home and we agreed to a set of rules and a contract with our neighbors, with you all, with our city, with our county. And, the rules were the rules. And now we're being told, hey, you can't do what you wanted to do when you bought it and with the rules in place. And I kind of feel like the rug has been pulled out, or is potentially going to be pulled out from underneath us. And it does seem rather arbitrary to me. Maybe, I haven't really heard the rationales for it. And if there's good reasons, so be it. I'm a pretty reasonable person. I'm very willing to hear those. But, from my point of view, it definitely seems like it was like we agreed to a set of rules and a contract with our neighbors, and now that contract's trying to be changed after the fact. So I would, respectfully request that the rules remain the same, and that pools are allowed in the setback. And thank you very much for listening. I appreciate the support of everybody as well.
Technically, no.
That was Rick on a faster timer.
He's quicker to push that start button. Dale Christensen.
Your timing on. Ready, set, go.
Okay, go. I'm Dale Christensen. I live at 525 Lydian Channel. I moved here when I was a sophomore in high school, 1991. Did have the privilege of going to high school here, graduating, going to Del Mar College, which was ranked #1 at the time. Very proud, and went to AIM in Corpus Christi. But Port Aransas has been home, and we've been here 31 years, and it always seems like the person who moves here wants to be the last person to move here. We've seen it 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. It's always the same thing. I cross the ferry, don't let anybody else in Port A. I think we forget the reason we love Port Aransas is it is a community, and it still is a community. We do have lots of tourists. We have lots of short-term rentals, yes. But the people who live here, 3,500 people, we're still a town. The school still needs kids in the seats. We don't have enough kids. We're transporting people from Aransas Pass, from Padre. So people keep complaining about not all these houses being built. And I guess I look at it a different way. These are people who come down here and live in their dream, come into a national beach, and we call it Port Aransas Beach, but the beach is for the United States, not just Port Aransas. And it's a shame to me that we're trying to keep people from coming down here and enjoying our town, our beach. And the setbacks with the pools, again, I don't really see why that's a big issue. The swimming pools are for mostly kids. That's the people who love the swimming pool. My 9-year-old is, a fish. Anytime we go to a vacation spot, that's why we have to make sure there's a swimming pool. And, people coming from Austin, from San Antonio to visit our town are the same way. They want a swimming pool. I don't see how a swimming pool hurts being in the setbacks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's the last person I've got on my list.
Straw, come on,
Now I get to talk.
bring it on.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Mike Hall and I live at 489 Margot Lane. And I did want to speak to item 4.9, which is the side yard setbacks. And I just want to kind of give, I know you haven't had a chance to start discussing it, so I'm not going to, I don't know what your feelings are on it. I attended a council meeting the other day and it looked like one council member was in favor of putting it on the agenda based on a couple of citizen comments. I don't know if we have a large number of people that think this is a problem. I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 6 years and it never came up. And I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 10 years and a council member for 6. And I don't remember it coming up. So if you drive around town like I did, I found hundreds, if not thousands of houses that have mechanical devices in the 5-yard setback. And if you go around surrounding communities, you're going to find the same thing. I did a Google search trying to find communities that actually didn't allow them in the 5 foot. And it seemed like that the HOAs and the specific communities are against it, but I couldn't find any cities that are against it. There probably are some, but I didn't find any. And what I did find is that when there was a restriction for AC units, it was, you couldn't put them in the front of your property. So if we take the side yard away, then you leave either the back or the front. So our unintended consequence could be we'll wind up seeing them in the front yard when we drive by. And I don't think that's very attractive. I'm a little concerned about that. And let me talk about a little bit about numbers. I do believe in the side yard and the front and the rear side yard setbacks. But if you take 5 feet times 100 feet out of a 50 by 100 lot, that's 1,000 feet. And then you take the 20 by 50 for the front yard, and you take the 10 by 50 for the backyard, you just took 2,500 square feet of buildable space away from that lot, which is 50% of the lot. And at least we were allowed to put our mechanical devices and some other things in that area. Now we're going to take that away. So that's a pretty big taking when you're talking about 50% of the lots unbuildable, and all we could put on there was some small items, and now we're getting that possibly getting taken away. So I would just ask that and one other thing that I found when I was looking up trying to figure out what was happening, some of the cities around us, and particularly there was a high quality city near the Houston. I don't want to be quoted, so you do your own homework, but they were only several of the communities I saw, they're only requiring a 3 foot side yard setback instead of 5. Well, I'm not necessarily in favor of that. I think the 5 is appropriate, and I think it has something to do with the fire code as well. But my point is, don't take our space away for our air conditioners and our pool pumps. I mean, we've been doing it for a long time. Why are we changing it? And that's the question that I would ask. And I would appreciate and by the way, I remember that I hate to be on P&Z because you guys always get yelled at first. Thank you for that time.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any other citizens with comments? Mr. Mazak.
All right, Daniel Mazak, property at 104 Bentgrass. I'm also here to speak about item 4.9, the items that are allowed or allowable within side yard setbacks. So I believe the ask by council is for y'all to review and make recommendations. I know they had some ideas and comments on the items that they thought were appropriate or inappropriate to be in those setbacks. I unfortunately didn't see those included in this packet, so I don't know if y'all have something for this P&Z group to review, but I'm concerned about the mechanical equipment item and partially about the pools, a little indifferent on that, though it was vaguely defined during the council meeting. They just said pools, not specifically in-ground pools. So that's kind of vague as to whether or not you could have even like a kiddie splash pool and fill it up in your backyard and put it next to your fence or in the property line. But particularly the mechanical equipment, if this action is taken or that is pursued, I'd ask that there be at least a 1-year grace period. There are property owners all around town that are planning projects and have incurred thousands of dollars in architect and engineer design fees. And if that just happens overnight and all of those have to now find a new home for their mechanical equipment, redesign their home, modify it heavily, I mean, it's a very damaging event to take place. So I just ask that whatever changes be made there, because the process of design and permitting is so long, that there be a 1-year grace period. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else? Number 4, items for consideration. Discuss and take action to confirm that dune permit application BFDP 22-000527 Loco Ocean LLC is consistent with the city's coastal management plan. Applicant proposes to continue construction on a previously permitted location. Applicant Loco Ocean LLC, property location 2120 on the beach.
Mr. Chairman, this is a little bit unusual, only in as much as probably one of the longer construction projects, actually the longest construction projects in my tenure here that's been going on the beach. Some of you have been around a while. This was the old Woodfin property, and actually set the brief history, set the standard for the limitation on development there, where your only access is via the beach. She kind of became the standard, which was 3 units per acre. Because of the way her particular project was approved. So that kind of became the standard. So, but the particular property is described just wasn't able to be completed. It was a renovation of the existing houses, partial rebuild based on the hurricane as well. It kind of transcends a lot of that. And so the dune permit is they just weren't going to complete it. Their extensions were, I don't think, they haven't expired yet, but they will. And to get ahead of the curve, they will expire relatively shortly, May or June.
Yeah.
So to get ahead of that, we just advise that they go ahead. There's no more extensions. And so the easiest path forward was just get a new dune permit. So it's virtually in data identical to the previous one.
Zero mitigation, right?
Zero, well, beyond what was already being done per the other one, but no mitigation
with the current
one. I don't think Stephen, the project engineer, is here. Well, it doesn't matter. That's it. So if there's any questions, like I said, this has been an ongoing project. It's under construction. It's been under construction. Several contractor changes. And that's kind of the nature of this. Barney probably remembers Miss Woodfin. She was a council member formerly.
Yeah, I remember her well. I did a lot of work out there. So the 2-story house got demoed. She had 3 houses.
There's 3 houses, so they're renovating all 3.
Yeah, and there's a pool, I think,
And they've added a pool.
a guitar-shaped pool.
A guitar.
It hasn't been permitted yet. It's on their plans.
Wait a minute.
There is a guitar-shaped pool.
Right. There is.
Not
It's on their-
It does not exist.
It's not permitted.
It's on their
It's
plans.
in the plan.
It would be allowed based on the permit. They haven't,
Yeah.
they haven't building permitted
Yeah.
that separately yet.
What are the 3 houses?
Page 18.
Just for 2120.
I thought they were gonna build a 3rd house.
No,
They're adding on to them.
yeah, they cannot build
Yeah.
any additional units.
All right, so those are the 3 original houses, I guess.
Correct.
Okay, I got the wrong idea on that one.
What does it mean when it says it's a special flood hazard area?
It's a BE zone.
Well, even actually our AE zones are considered a special flood hazard area. It's just a FEMA designation. It is subject, when you're in a special flood hazard area, and my floodplain administrator, CFM certified flood, can elaborate, but essentially you're in some FEMA designated hazard area, and it goes from minor to the velocity zones, which is the most damaging because of the scouring potential of a velocity zone. Usually when there's wave action, adjacent to the property. It'd be a
So
V
how
zone.
is that congruent or incongruent with the impact or potential impact on the critical dunes? I mean,
So special flood hazard areas really don't have anything to do with the dune system. It's just the area of Port Aransas is designated into these different flood hazard areas. Everything that is in a flood hazard area, it's called a special flood hazard area. This isn't any different than any other community. This is in a VE zone, which means it's just subject to that wave action.
Marty, I bet you a Taco, your personal house is in an AE zone,
Yeah.
which
Yes.
is a special
Oh,
flood
it
hazard
is.
zone. This
Okay.
building sits in a special flood hazard.
okay.
90% of Port Aransas does.
In the dune permit, that we're reviewing, there's no impact on that on the critical dunes, on their proposed development.
I don't understand
I
what
don't
you're
understand the
asking.
question.
So the development that's out there proposed, right, with the 3
The
units.
construction,
Already
the
there.
construction is
Already
going
there.
on, right?
Already
The renovate, it's a renovation is probably the best way to
The
describe it.
houses
All right, let me
existed.
rephrase the question then. I'm trying to understand. So this proposal actually is no different than the footprint that is currently there, specific to the dunes. We have the dunes, the critical dunes, we have a footprint that's there, and it's been there, right? And this permit is literally just the previous permit extended, and really no other impact on the dunes, the critical dunes, or any other dunes out there. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
But nothing to do with
Right,
the
that-
flood,
No,
the
I
flood
just-
zone.
that-
that's-
You
Okay,
answered that question. I just
Okay.
want to make sure that I fully understand
correct.
what the dune permit under consideration is. That's all.
Yeah, in this instance, there's no expansion,
20 on here.
no additional units, no expansion.
Yeah, I saw. it.
Yeah.
And there are 3 houses already on there.
Right.
Yeah.
That have been on there for a very long time.
But then I did notice they made notes in here that if somehow somebody accidentally or inadvertently touches a critical dune, they did at least account for how they're going to fix it.
Yes.
Which is.
It's a
Which is pretty
contingency, right?
typical in the narrative. Just, it's the nature of construction and it's a temporary impact is what they call it.
Okay.
Any comments from commissioners? Can I invite a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Mrs. Smith has motion to approve.
Second.
Mike Dana seconded.
All right, Craig Scott,
Yes.
Marty Phelan,
Yes.
Leslie Smith,
Yes.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
Barney Farley,
Yes.
and Chad Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 4.2. Where'd Marty go? I'm sorry, where did Marty go? Trustee Fall.
Maybe restroom.
I have a feeling. Gotta-
Discuss and take action to confirm that dune permit application BFDP 21-2404 Seaside Condominiums Dune Walkover is consistent with the city's coastal management plan. Applicant proposes to construct a dune walkover at the seaward edge of the parking lot for safe pedestrian access to the public beach. Applicant Sandcastle Holdings LLC, property location 841 Sandcastle Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think what we'd like to start doing, most of the project engineers for these programs show up. And I think invariably there tends to be a technical question. So rather than myself or occasionally Nicole rambling through, we're going to let the engineer make the presentation as far as what they're proposing. And again, staff will chime in if there's anything that's missing or if you have any specific procedural questions regarding the city. So with that, Craig Thompson with Hanson Engineering, take it away.
Howdy, Craig Thompson with Hanson Engineering. Rick and Nicole are experts with this, so you're selling yourself short to think that you can't answer technical questions, but I'm going to give it a shot. This one is a dune walkover. It is, it is a dune permit for a dune walkover and a dune walkover only. This is for the seaside condominiums that are on Sandcastle Drive. It's on the north side towards the very beach end of it, obviously, with the dune walkover. The dune walkover is from the parking lot that exists right now out to the beach. The owner of the property has written kind of a preamble to it, which is the first page, that executive summary that discusses what he is wanting to renovate this property for. The owner of the property is a doctor and has many medical facilities, and it's really, he sees these condominiums as a chance, as a possible place for some therapeutic and maybe for some elderly folks. And so while it certainly has proximity to the beach, and some of the discussions with the city about this dune walkover was about that proximity, and thinking that instead of a dune walkover, sidewalks or something like that, we just felt like for safety of passage to the beach pedestrian wise, we felt like a dune walkover was more appropriate. You look at this dune walkover and the layout of the dune walkover, it's not for golf carts. It's not, we understand that if folks have golf carts here and that's their vehicular use, they certainly can get out on the sandcastle and access the beach. It's really more about pedestrian, about therapeutic use, and about the folks that are there to have safe passage, walking passage out to the beach. Certainly, we will build to the Texas General Land Office suggested recommended standards, which is for every height, for every foot of width, we will elevate the dune walkover that height above the dunes, which allows the dune vegetation, allows the movement and migration of dunes and sand throughout that area. We did try to avoid the really high parts of the dunes as much as possible, but sometimes it was unavoidable. We are asking for, instead of just a simple dune walkover, we are asking for an area there back off of the beach for a 10-foot wide on both sides, and I believe it's 20, maybe 25 feet in depth, but we are asking for a little lookout sitting place. The intention there is to build some sitting along the edge to allow folks, as they're walking out there, to be able to sit and just take a look out on the beach if that's what they so choose. That is really the extent of this. Most all of that area is considered a critical dune. So the impacts of the dune walkover themselves have typically been seen, especially if we raise that elevation, seen as temporary impacts. Certainly, as we construct this dune walkover, we will mitigate any of the impacts that we have, and then the hope is that because we're elevating it to the width, that that vegetation will come back and those dunes will act as they act now. There are some areas underneath the turnout, the larger seating area, that we are calling permanent impacts, and those areas we will mitigate for. We've chosen a location shown within here, kind of in the south. I guess that's maybe the north top left-hand corner as you look at that picture. How about that? Instead of trying to do the directions, kind of a low area.
On the screen.
I can get it.
Up in here. There's a little bit of a lower area. All right, go ahead.
Nope, no, it keeps doing that.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to get the page up.
Okay.
On our agenda.
Just the one that shows the mitigation area, because I had a question regarding the mitigation area.
Yep, give me just a moment.
This one.
But we, typically when we find a mitigation area, we're trying to find an area that's a little bit lower that could utilize some added sand and help kind of replicate a dune system in that area. And I think we tried to achieve that in this area away from the dune walkover. A lot of times when we're doing dune mitigation, you would certainly like to have those impacts mitigated for seaward. But in this area, we just felt like that was a better location for those impacts. And I guess that's probably it as far as my presentation. I'm here to open up to questions about the project and the mitigation and impacts and so forth.
I'm almost there, Chad.
Yeah, well, and while you're doing that, let me just also two exhibits that I think are really pretty important. And Craig, excellent presentation. I got to tell you that, there's probably, we can count on one hand the number of engineers that usually are do these dune permits. And actually you could narrow it down to probably two that do the majority, Hanson and Urban, quite honestly. And regardless of what their customers come and ask, because sometimes we're involved in those conversations, these engineers do a really good job of protecting our dunes. I mean, they are the first line of defense. They are the experts. And exhibits G and H kind of show, I know there's concerns about the proliferation of walkovers in these boardwalks over the years. But when you look at these exhibits and you see, as Craig explained, how high above the dunes they are, keeping in mind that the GLO has absolutely no ability to stop somebody that just choose to create walk paths. So, there is no process, there is no permitting, and you can just continue to walk through the dunes on your property, which creates deeper cuts, and you see those up and down. So, surely there's a point where, enough is, you serve the population needed with boardwalks. But the way that's been done in almost all the years I've been here has just been better and better. They're literally, like you said, above the dunes. It allows for vegetation to receive sunlight and water. And to me, that just bears noting, because like I said, we know that the higher you go above the dunes, the more expensive it is. And we know that applicants come and want different things, and they want a lesser cost. And like I said, we commend the engineers, both you guys, for explaining they need to be elevated, they need to be high, they need to meet these things, because it didn't always used to be that way. They used to kind of just chunk through some of the dunes. And anyway, so good job on the presentation. Staff recommend, it is consistent with our coastal management plan, meets all of our guidance. We did in the February 23 letter from the reviewing engineer, which in this case was Urban, did take no exceptions to the dune permit, and again, finding it consistent as well. So I'll leave it with that, and any questions.
How far is the proposed boardwalk from the street?
There's a good visual there.
Page 85 in your packet.
Yeah, probably not more than about 75, 100 feet, if that.
And
It's
the
close. It's close
argument
and
for the
it's understood.
boardwalk is for safety. It's far safer to walk with your children in your beach buggy rather than drag them down Sandcastle Drive at the
Certainly.
confluence of three streets. At least on the beach walk, they can get there and look in two directions rather than try to look in three, right?
Certainly. People coming in and off the beach. You have some newly built showers right there. There's a lot of traffic and a lot of eyeballs on a lot of things other than pedestrians that are trying to ingress and egress the beach safely. And I'm certainly, I've reviewed dune walkovers, and I've reviewed dune permits for Port Aransas, and I've prepared dune walkovers for 20 years. And there was a lot of back and forth with my client here. And there was a lot of discussion. We've met with staff. We've talked with the staff reviewing folks. It was one of those things that the owner of this property has taken on quite an effort to rebuild the seaside condominiums as they were, or as they are, as a footprint. And it was one of the things that he was very much willing to fight for, which is safe pedestrian access to and from the beach for the people that are staying in those units. The one thing is you notice in the preamble that the owner wrote, which is about the amount of units that exist within that seaside. We're not talking about a neighborhood. This isn't just a few folks a day that are going to be walking down there. There's going to be a lot of people hopefully accessing the beach, and safely was of his his biggest concern.
And although, the owner's statement doesn't certainly lock them into any future performance, but when you look at the design, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, his career field as a doctor, and he talks about the therapeutic use. I think there was a whole lot of additional cost in that boardwalk because of the switchbacks, which leads me to believe that if he was just looking at moving people, there'd have been a lot cheaper, equally good for the dunes above and beyond, but more of a straighter path. So he went to a lot of expense for people that have a little bit more difficult time on that boardwalk. So it does seem to make sense that, and it's a novel concept and kind of interesting that would be an area for Port Aransas to explore.
The setbacks, you mentioned that, and part of the reason for the amount of setbacks that are there, and I know it's quite a bit, but the desire, these dunes are really pretty high. And to clear all of those critical dunes as we got there, to keep them at that height and then come down to the beach, and to be able to maintain ADA accessible ramp standards, which is at a 1 to 12 for a 30-foot length and then flatten out. And so that's why you see so many of these switchbacks, is to be able to keep that type of ADA. You certainly can, and a lot of dune walkovers come down at a much steeper slope. But he just felt like that for folks that have some issues walking, and he felt like it was better to keep it at that ADA slope, and that's why you have so many switchbacks in there.
Craig, I'm trying to find it in here. I'm reading about scraping the existing, storing it, replanting that, putting all that stuff back out.
Yep.
How are they going to get the 203 yards from the impact site to the mitigation site?
Well, what we will do is at the mitigation site, we will strip that vegetation off. We will stockpile it, keep it all on site, and then you place the volume mitigation in that location, and you take that vegetation and put it back over the footprint there.
Well, I get that part. I mean, but how are they going to get it from the impact site to the mitigation site?
The volume of sand, or the volume of sand will probably not be brought from on site. It will be brought from off site. There is verbiage that we put in these dune permits that talk about that the sand that's brought from off site to be used for volume mitigation, that it's of like type and material.
Granular.
Usually there's, it's from Mustang Island somewhere, more than likely. So in reality, we will not remove the volume of sand underneath the seating area. That volume of sand will be brought in from elsewhere. So you're actually adding to the volume of the dunes in this area.
Okay, like maybe, so if we're bringing in off-site mitigation, how are we going to get?
No, we're not bringing in off-site mitigation. We're bringing
off-site
off-site sand fill, right?
So we call Island Construction, get them to bring 25 truckloads down, 26 truckloads down. How are those 26 truckloads going to get from the street into the mitigation zone?
That I don't know. We certainly can mention that and call effective that. We've never really done that, other than mentioning within our mitigation procedures that any impacts for the construction of it need to be mitigated for. So again, any temporary impact.
We've always taken that as temporary impacts that are allowed by virtue of construction, just have to be restored.
My thought, if you're asking me, I haven't asked the owner about this, but the easiest way would be right off of that, to be able to build some sort of access ramp off of that
beach road.
That beach road right there. Or if the dunes are too high, it could also be brought in off of the parking lot. Either way would probably be, you'd have pretty decent access to it.
So you don't get to drive a dump truck up there.
Well, I mean,
you can't hand shovel it.
You can take a dump truck up there if you provide access, and then mitigate for any of those impacts you caused by driving that dump truck to it.
But number 4 in the procedures, number 4 in the mitigation procedures is typical language. It says if anything is damaged for this project, that it is dealt with, and that's pretty routine, and GLO is aware that you got to get the material. You got to get the material to the beneficial part of the dunes.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that was one of my questions.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Just so I know how it's done. By the way, I've looked at this before. This was supposed to come in before us once before, and I guess they pulled it. So I looked at all those drawings and diagrams, and it's like overbuilt. It's it's solid, well engineered and all that. But my question is, how they built the jetties? They started at the beach, and they made it some, and they kept going. Yeah. Is that how y'all do that, or you go out there and with your augers and everything, and just start drilling and then come back?
I'll tell you, it's probably different with different contractors. I've seen, in fact, we were doing one over in Corpus Christi right now where they're actually building it similar to what you were talking about, the jetties. You build the jetties, you move your equipment further out, you build more jetties, you move your equipment out. I watched them build a dune walkover just like that. They built a dune walkover, and on top of that dune walkover, they built it stout enough to be able to run their backhoe right over the top of that thing and be able to work off of it.
So you could get your dirt out there or whatever.
But I've also seen folks go out there, jet those pilings in, and then work from the ground as they go out there. Some of it may depend upon how high it is. Some of it may depend upon, it's a lot about the contractor and how they best see fit. I know, there's a high bar that contractors have to pass in Port Aransas with regard to temporary impacts and fixing those temporary impacts and everything. This is the beach community. These folks that work at this city completely understand that, and they will do nothing that would allow any kind of degradation of the dune impacts that's not permanent.
So there's nothing concrete that this is actually going to be used pretty much for there's like some kind of special use that would justify not using the roadway. There is nothing that the applicant is setting in stone on it, correct? Like I'm just trying to understand the justification of doing that much damage to the dune. And for what? Because I do notice, like Barney mentioned,
So
the other
Leslie,
paperwork that they did have, I saw the words luxury mentioned a couple of times, and that seems to be lacking this second time that it was brought in front of us.
Elaborate on the damage that you're in, what, again,
Even with the mitigation, it's not going to be quite the same as what it was, but irregardless,
okay.
I'm having a hard time understanding the necessity of this. This is and I appreciate the designs. I think it's great. Especially if it's in an area that's underserved by crossovers, and I don't think it is. And I'm on Sandcastle. Yeah, it gets a little busy, but it's not near as busy as some of the other access roads. It's not a real steep grade. I find it kind of a fairly safe sidewalk over there. And if it's an issue with the sidewalks over there, maybe we need to talk with the city about making the area a little bit safer instead of doing what I feel is kind of an extensive amount of mitigation. That's my feeling on it.
Okay.
I would like to say that apparently mitigation is, from what I've been able to decipher, mitigation is like, it's well known how to do it. It's been done countless times, and it's going to be done countless more times. So I can say it's a good little walkover. Apparently, this stuff recovers well, but what I haven't heard is follow up on dune having to mitigate dunes. I don't know who's in charge of going out, once a year, once every 5 years, and making sure that it actually that the mitigation turned out well. Anyway, I'm not too worried about that. I just wanted to throw that in that, mitigation's a fact of life. However, I think that the city needs to go and join with the GLO and review everything about the dunes and about the use of the dunes and, walkovers, cuts and everything else. Maybe it's time to get another look at the whole situation. Apparently, everybody who lives on the beach is going to have a walkover.
well, Barney, remember, they get every one of these. GLO gets every one of these.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, if it was up to me, I would call GLO and say, can we get another look at the coastal management plan for Port Aransas?
Well, congratulations, Mr. Phelan and either Mr. Schneider. That's part of the comprehensive plan as well. The coastal management plan will is a part of the city plan, so that'll be subject to review, and that'll come in play.
Good.
I don't think we're trying to say every single home or every individual needs a dune walkover, but almost 60 unit condominium, we felt like would bring traffic that would need safer.
But most of
passage.
them are not beside a road. That's the
Understood.
problem that I have. with it.
Understood. I understand.
Well, pedestrians and
No, I
and
understand.
proximity roads are an important thing. I mean, you pointed out doing an intersection that's 20 feet from your house on a regular basis, so it's unsafe.
Mhm.
I mean,
You know,
imagine dragging.
safety's an issue. We need to cancel spring break.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen
Give it
a,
a whirl, Barney.
I don't think I've seen an ADA compliant walkover. Is this?
No.
the
This,
first one?
It's a
it's,
good little walkover.
I can't recall another one's been done to meet ADA. It's not a specific requirement
Oh,
with the
it's a
GLO,
great-
so that's
great.
that's fairly unique.
I would only address, you asked, is there something concrete that says that this is for therapeutic? And I would say if this was a developer that just wanted a dune walkover, there's at least 30% more in this dune walkover than would be in any other dune walkover because of the switchbacks and because of the slopes that are there to meet ADA. You
I'm
asked
just
if there's
kinda
something, I
curious.
understand.
Why didn't the developer just get a different property than if this was the intention?
But it's a great property. My mom used to live there.
Oh, I love the property.
Well,
I'm just, if this was a goal, you know, when we purchase things, just like we purchase our houses, we want to be in certain zoned areas, et cetera, et cetera. It just.
I'd say
seems like
this
that
is
would have been
someone
a
who likes to
consideration.
repurpose buildings that are there and not tear down and build new.
No.
This is a person who sees this as, an iconic place on a road in Sandcastle that they would like to put to a better use than. So anyways, I'm not the developer. I'm an engineer trying to help them get a dune permit, but I think they tried to represent, that's why I did ask. I knew these questions were here. I knew this is there, and it's not necessarily an easy thing, but that's why I asked them to write this preamble so that their feelings could be out there and presented.
Where did we leave off on, to answer Barney's question about, it's either the engineer or the applicant that has to sign off on the correctness of the mitigation at the end of the project. And if it's not, then they're legally responsible for fixing this. This was something we went through while I was
Right.
on the commission a year ago. So it has now been any new dune permit that's come through, I think the last 2 or 3 months, any of those dune permits, it's the owner or the engineer at the end has to, generally they do a new topo to make sure what was stated in mitigation happened. And if somebody were to find it's a proposition to go out there and figure out if they did it or not, if it wasn't done right, then it is their burden to fix it and make it done right. So that's a follow-up that we started going back to July 2020
Yeah.
when we started that process.
Who performs the on-site?
It's
The owner's
usually the
responsibility, but the engineer is, if they're around, is who'll do it.
So is there kind of a schedule there, like it flags up on their computer or on your computer? We need your 5-year report.
But it's not 5 years, it's 3 years. They
3
have
years.
3 years when the dune permit expires.
I always wondered about that.
And it's best if the original engineer, because they've done all the topography work, so they have if you brought somebody else out and they had to, it would be a lot more.
It'd be
If Craig
expensive.
gets hired by Urban to go back out and do it later on, it's going to be very, very expensive. But the original engineer has the original state and he can see that the topography is now taller. It was something that I drove them nuts about it for the first 8 months I was here, because it's like, hey, we're doing all these dune permits, who's checking on them?
Right.
And we had Jim Urban in here and we had a bunch of conversations about it. And this is what we came up with, is the solution that wasn't going to cost people an extra $20,000. It's probably an extra $1,500 to have
Pretty
that follow.
expensive already. huh?
Yeah, but that way you've got the design professional that's double checking just the contractor that, to see that it's right. With an understanding is that if not, then they got to fix it.
And I think that's been more than a few months. I think
Yeah,
that's
it's been a little
been
longer.
almost a year.
It's all gone fast. It's gone backwards.
I'd like to make
more
a-
comments or questions, or
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 4.2, dune permit application, BFDP 21-2404 Seaside Condominiums dune walkover is consistent with the city's coastal management plan.
I have some questions. It doesn't involve the engineer. There's some statements about it. This is sort of out in the weeds a little bit, but I'm looking at the language here. So the property appeal to an above average to premium rental customer, greatly improved demographic of tourism to the area. They're going to draw. I'm curious about how much of this is dedicated to the therapeutic aspect and the wellness place. This one right here, it's significant that having a place to rest and look out on the ocean will have a therapeutic component for the health and wellness programs being offered. Some of the stuff that's happening in my neighborhood, if that wasn't there, my mental health would improve overnight.
But Barney, we have a motion on the table, so we can.
Well, okay, can we discuss after the motion?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
No worries. I just.
And there's a comment section at the end for all of us, right?
Absolutely. So. Anyway, what's cutting you off? I was just trying to.
I second the motion.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. To approve
Barney,
it.
part of the second motion.
To approve it?
To approve
BFDP.
It's consistent with the coastal management plan.
wait a minute, what exactly is it?
The
Approve the work.
BFDP 21-2404.
Oh, yeah, no, that wasn't my purpose. It was not my purpose. It's already been done. Can I withdraw it?
Sure.
Okay, I do not second the motion.
So we have a motion for Mike Dayon to approve, and it's consistent with coastal management plan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Greg's got a second.
Now you guys can continue
Okay.
discussions.
Now we can continue.
Okay, sorry, guys. Yeah, so.
This was an adder in here that I mean, I think it muddied the water more than, because I mean, we were trying to figure out a dune permit,
yeah.
and throwing all this stuff in here. It's making it
Sure,
harder.
sure, it's relevant to me. Well, the safety thing, okay, so the entire traffic through that road is gonna have the same problem. Anybody walking there is gonna have the same problems, safety problems with the traffic. So, and the fact that it's right there, you know, it's the reasons for approving this. They're asking us to approve to make, it's not just the safety. Well, okay, I really am not in the weeds here, but to make it nice for those, for the people who are getting therapy and everything in there, and to improve their situation. And of course, everybody else will be using it. So I'm not sure the safety thing has to do. I'm sort of in favor of using the road there. I feel like we're doing them a big favor since they have access to the beach. We're being asked to do that. And the reasons are, you know, health and welfare and having their own walk to the beach. So I guess I'm just saying, I have a problem with the reasons they have described here, that they need that. A lot of them are, you know, have nothing to do with safety or welfare.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the engineer, just as the design professional, I just want it on the record, whether it's needed or not, do you feel that it's safer than, I just need to know, because safety is becoming an issue. In your professional opinion, do you feel it's safer than walking on the road?
And I think you know this, Rick. Yeah, I mean, I think,
Okay. I just
you
want to make
know
sure we
this. We
understand.
went back and forth about whether or not to bring this and how to do it. And quite honestly, I think the thing we kept coming back around to is that this is the safest avenue to be able to get to and from the beach from those condominiums.
Whether they decide it's needed or not,
Much safer. I understand you can use the road, but the applicant and myself do believe that this is a much safer option than using the road to walk to the beach.
I just want to make sure that you felt that way. Okay.
This whole executive summary, I mean, if you look at the letter of the law and what the GLO has approved, and they followed all the rules for a dune permit.
Yeah.
I mean, so this thing just muddied the water more.
Yeah,
than anything. If they would have just said, hey, we're doing a dune permit.
I agree. They could sell it in a
Pull
year.
Piece of paper out, throw it away, because everything else followed. the
Yeah.
rules.
What the ultimate use is, to me, is lip service. That whether it becomes a therapeutic place, that'd be cool, something new, neat. But if it doesn't, I don't think that, because what it is now may not make any difference in a few years.
But that, yeah, that's a big selling point for them.
Yeah, like I said, I just want to make sure that the discussion isn't that it wouldn't be safer, that it's just whether it's needed or not, because.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like it or think it's needed, but they followed all the rules, so that's what I'm bound to
fits
vote
it
on one way
all.
or the other.
Mhm.
I feel like it definitely benefits the applicant and not necessarily the community so much, so.
I guess that's what I was
Like I
trying to
said, if
say.
it was in an area that didn't have good access to the
Well,
beach, they have excellent
Again,
access to the
just,
beach.
just to be very clear, the coastal management plan says nothing about it needing to
Oh.
benefit the community.
I know, I
just-
understand that,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, they already have very good access to the beach compared to just about all of us.
Sandcastle condominiums has a walkover.
Yeah.
Equidistant the other side of the road.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Is that,
This
oh, that's
distance here,
that one
so
right there?
this sandcastle, which is across the street from it, their walkover is about the same distance that this walkover would be.
How old is their walkover?
That one right there.
I don't know what year it was built.
Probably got blasted Harvey like the most.
Rebuilt
It was
4 years ago.
rebuilt after the hurricane.
Call the roll.
Okay, Craig Scott,
Yes.
Barney Farley,
No.
Marty Phelan,
No.
Leslie Smith,
No.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
and Chad Schmidas.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
We have three.
Where the hell's Nick?
No doubt.
It just goes to city council, I guess.
I mean, we're a recommending body, right? So it's
Yep.
a split decision. We annotate it and move on.
We can pass it along with that recommendation.
Yeah, it didn't, it did not fail, so it'll,
Or
we'll
pass.
kick it to council and
See what they say.
All right.
explain it.
Moving on. 4.3, discuss and take action on FPLT 22-000206, final plat of Palmia Beach PUD Unit 6A.
Is that you?
Huh?
Huh?
You not gonna say anything more on any of them?
Well, you set it up and we'll.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Grunwald with Urban Engineering, here representing the developer tonight. This property is part of the Palmilla Beach PUD. This is actually the first proposed development of the track directly south of the access road. It was deemed Phase 6A. It consists of 59 single-family lots, 2 mixed-use lots, several open space, and right-of-way lots. It's consistent with the approved PUD. And if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Very good. So again, it's just, as he mentioned, it's an additional phasing of the original Palmia PUD. And again, just to prepare these lots for development on the already approved master plan, I guess is the question. Utilities are approved, utilities all approved. And again, it is consistent with our plating and the original Palmia PUD, so staff recommends approval.
Questions, comments?
Are you doing anything special on here? This is what y'all have been doing, right?
It's pretty much a continuation of what they did on the other side of the access road.
So they're moving all the dirt,
I
right?
mean, I will say that this particular phase has a lot of open space. There's a lot of existing lakes that they're leaving. They're digging more lakes, so it'll be a lot more open than what's on the north side of the access road.
That'd be nice.
Kind of just the existing lay of the land that's kind of driving that.
Different developmental architect.
No, still.
Well, he
different.
was involved in the initial land plan. They've got a new designer that's kind of jumped in and helped them finalize and tweak that, but
There's very little wiggle room when they bring these, just so you know, when they bring these additional phased units. We'll identify if they're taking like condominium lots and making them into residential or vice versa and those kind of things, but it's all within the PUD ordinance for residential mixed use, those kind of things. So unless they deviate from that, which then becomes a major amendment, like when they got rid of the golf course, part of the golf course. Other than that, like I said, we'll identify any significant, but again, it's just a continuation on of the master plan development.
How many units are out there or will be?
There's 59 single-family units proposed.
How many?
59 in this
They already
particular
sold?
phase.
How many total?
What's that?
Are they already sold?
Oh, I have no idea.
They
can't-
until right.
I mean, there's nothing built yet, so I don't see how they can sell.
Yeah,
them.
until it's approved, they can't.
You can't sell any property unless it's platted. It's not platted.
And they've got to get the infrastructure in and all of those things before they can record the next phase.
Can I invite a motion?
I'll make his motion to approve.
Greg Scott has motion to approve FPLT 22-00206.
Second.
Mike Dana, second the motion.
Leslie Smith,
Yes.
Marty Phelan,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
Barney Farley,
Yes.
and Chad Schmides.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Hey, good, you're staying up.
Thank you. I'm just gonna stay.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, don't go anywhere.
Item 4.4, discuss and take action on FPLT 22-000207. Final Platapalmia Beach PUD Unit 6B.
This is the second phase of that track south of the access road. The first one is adjacent to the access road, and this one is a little further south. It also includes an additional tie to State Highway 361. It's kind of just a continuation of what they've been doing. It's got 51 single-family lots proposed and none of them mixed-use areas. All of it-
61?
51?
51?
And once again, utilities approved, and it is consistent with the Palmia master plan as an additional phase. So kind of ditto most everything I said a moment ago.
You do have the final approval from the engineer in the packet that I handed out ahead of time.
Read all the back and forth last night.
Yes.
Those two going at it. Any questions, comments, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Leslie Smith has motion to approve FPLT 22-000207.
Second was,
Ooh.
Barney Farley seconds.
Okay. Barney Farley,
yes.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
Marty Phelan,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Leslie Smith,
Yes.
Chad Schmides.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 4.5, discuss and take action on PPLT and FPLT 22-000203, preliminary and final plat of the Palms.
Y'all might recognize this one because it was at P and Z last month.
We already approved it once, right?
What's that?
We approved it once already.
We
You approved
did,
it last time.
but as it was going to council, there were some concerns raised about our turnaround. Although the hammerhead that was shown is fully complies with requirements for emergency vehicles and fire trucks. And it's used in PUDs and NUDs and CUDs with private streets. There was a concern that since this was a public standard city subdivision, that based on the way the ordinance read, a cul-de-sac was really the only option.
We took a strict interpretation and made them move the cul-de-sac back away from the property line. So
Well, I still have an issue. Number 13 still says driveways are prohibited for lot 7, block 2, and lot 4, block 5.
Did they not fix
There
that?
is no.
So they did fix it on the other one with the
Yeah.
hammerhead, so they must have used an old version to put
Oh.
this cul-de-sac in.
Sorry,
Yeah.
unless something's fixed, I don't go back to make sure it didn't get unfixed. We'll make sure
Just
that's
like last
corrected.
time. Well, but they did have it fixed before the council meeting.
but the significant difference, if you look at the exhibit and you look at the what I'll call the apex of the cul-de-sac, the very end, we just ask that it be pushed back away from that property line, back into the interior, leaving at least a 50-foot. Even though it was up against a road, we just didn't find a compelling reason to deviate. And the interpretation, we debated a little bit. We took the stricter of the interpretations and just moved it back. That's the difference.
So is there not a minimum street frontage requirement in the cul-de-sac because of that oddball shaped lot?
There is, it's less than 50, but it's identified by ordinance for a cul-de-sac. They talk about radius and arcs and
It allows for the
to
pie-shaped
facilitate.
lots.
Yeah.
I've
It's
got
all
some of those on
about
my
the,
screen.
it's all about the fire trucks.
It's always
How
about-
far back did you move it?
Well, we moved it 50 feet from the adjacent property, which was a roadway. So it's actually much further than from any
The ordinance says the terminus of the street has to be no less than 50 feet from the property line. And there was some debate on what the terminus of the street was, but in the end, we conformed.
So there was some due diligence going on.
And just for Greg's, what happens with number 12 there? Is that all one?
It's all one lot. It's available
Uh,
if you'd like to buy it.
Is everybody jumping on it or not?
I have no idea.
It's
It's definitely a unique lot. You could do some things with it, have a good area to the right, it to have some softball, football, whatever you want.
Odd shaped.
Garden.
Sure.
Swimming pool. Oh, wait, no, don't say that.
I didn't say that.
We have a similar lot in Old Town. I believe Jerry Webb owns it near East Street, North Street, that area. There's a big triangle lot that is built really well on.
Yeah, something you typically see in a city, you know?
Say it again.
Got some at the end of White Street.
You're right, White Avenue kind of dead ends in
Yeah.
a couple houses on that
It's a little
property.
unique back there, a little bit more unique.
Any questions, comments before I invite a motion and we get to move on to the fun things?
I'll make a motion to approve item 4.5, PPLT and FPLT 22-000203.
I'll make a motion to second it.
Mike Diana's motion to approve, Leslie Smith has seconded.
Okay, let's start with Craig Scott.
Yes.
Leslie Smith,
Yes.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
Marty Phelan,
Yes, but I want to annotate something at the end. If the comments at the section remind me to go back to this.
Okay.
Barney Farley,
Yes.
and Chad Schmides.
Yes, it picks comment number 13.
I will. Subject to.
Does anybody need a break before we move on?
Yes.
I'm just gonna
Thank
get
y'all.
some water.
Yeah, good idea.
I'm gonna get.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I know.
Take some water to bed. Under my
Hello? Get out of the tap.
Don't forget like Everest water.
Huh?
What do you think?
Thinking I'm tired, I ate shellfish last night.
Yeah.
I'm still paying for it today. I had to take a ton of epidural, so.
Yeah.
It's finally starting to haunt me.
It's coming down with something too.
Yeah.
What?
It was funny, I lay down last night and woke up at 9 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't believe it. I had so much stuff to do and I just laying there seeing the sunshine. What the heck is going
Was it a quarter pound of,
I didn't eat that much. I had that delicious pasta that Shells has.
Yeah. We should be able to.
With the, that bow tie pasta that they do with the shrimp and, I can't remember what the heck else was in it.
Alfredo sauce?
It's so good. It's so good. Ask them for the bow tie pasta with the shrimp. I haven't had leftovers. I don't get to eat now. I'm disappointed about that. I was looking forward to it and then.
I got my issue with that. Now, this was nothing, just changing the hammerheads codes. But since it's coming through, I do have some issues, I think, with understanding the drainage to this, because I think this is gonna be drained into the wrong thing. So I just want to annotate it in our minutes that it gets brought up to city council.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like a glass of wine. All right, item 4.6, discuss and take action on FLEX 22-000535, flexible development request for Agape Cove. Property owner requesting a reduction of the lot frontage requirement and the allowance of a private street. Applicant Kelby McCann, property location 711 East Avenue B, Avenue B, Gloucester.
I mean, like I said, these are applicant driven. So like I said, you're the one that needs to.
I'm gonna kind of try to address everybody simultaneously here. My name's Kelby McCann. I live on 1418 with Spring Sands. Maybe the lowest point in Port Aransas. I know we kayak to our house sometimes, so I understand the flooding issue extremely well. I also want to just say I'm one of the most reachable people, by the way. Please call me. I will meet you. I've met Barney at coffee shops. I've met him at things. I'm really easy to talk to.
I don't think that.
Okay, I'm self-proclaimed easy to talk to. So this flexible development. I wasn't asking permission to like, hey, can I put something here? What I was doing is saying, hey, I have the opportunity to do a fee simple 50-foot right away city development. And if I go by the regulations, which I can do, there's a TR property, that's a lot, and an R1 property. If you go to the Nueces CAD. And there's already a platted city road that leads into the property. And so where the STR, where you see STR, that's TR. That could be a hotel, right? Where you see LT, that's R1. And instead of doing a high density development in the TR, I took over this property because there was consideration by previous, I won't go into that could have been a high density development. And instead of doing that would have been a parking lot, by the way, LT, and then the STR would have been a high density development. And instead of doing that, what I've done is I've broken it down into large or 5,000 plus square foot lots. What I'm asking for is by a flex. The only reason I do that is because there's no cuds or nuts anymore. And I think that's brilliant, actually. I'm glad that we have to come and bring flexible developments at front.
It's really, we can hear the conversation, the mumbling back there. With your permission, if you guys need to talk, would you please take it outside?
Or we can talk after I'm really approachable and I can explain the situation. How to go first through this. So what I'm asking for in general in a flexible development is like see that Plan C? That's a fee simple development, 50-foot right away to the city. The city owns the street. The city doesn't build streets, right? That's right. You guys weren't going to pay for it. Well, you're not going to pay for that one.
We're not going to pay for that one.
Right. So I'm going to end up building the street either way. And it's going to be designed to engineered city specs because I can't just skirt those rules. That can't happen. So their city inspector will come and check on that. So that continuation of right of way is, or that right of way, that design is a continuation of 12th Street that curves into B Avenue. Am I misunderstanding that by Rick? That continuation?
It's a platted street.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a street. A street goes about 15 feet into the property. That's where you see that tick mark. We need to go on the CAD site. So see how the street bends there, but it never finished? That's a city street that never got finished.
Show, put the.
I'm sorry? Oh, so that, maybe we'll have to look into that. According to Nueces CAD, and I do want to do that a little bit. The Nueces CAD, that's not Mr. Kite's property. That little tick mark there is a unimproved city road. And maybe they're wrong, and the surveyor will have to figure that out. But if not, and I can change the development in any way. The lot on the right is TR, mostly TR and partially R2 on the lower left-hand corner, and the other lot is R1. And so what I'm bringing here, and I didn't have to do this actually. I'm probably, I think, the least dense developer in sense. My last development I just did was all TR property, and I put 3 10,000 square foot lots on. The SIP yard, which you'll hear about later, has 4,000 square feet on a 1.78 acres total of buildable space. This one I'm proposing 6 homes on something that could have been a hotel site. And so this is, I think, any developer can grab this piece of land. That's what I think is real clear, unless somebody wants to pay $30,000 a year in taxes on it like I am. And somebody's going to do something with it. So I'm doing something with it. And I live 300 feet to the east of there. So it's not like I'm just out of there. And one of my best friends is butted up against there. So continuing on, when we get into flooding, and this is something I want to talk to the council about, I've been through it. I live on Whispering Sands. I came to the city with my flooding problems, and the city said, well, that's an island. And I'm like, man, that's terrible, but people do build, and they continue to build. Short-term next to long-term. 12th Street was actually a short-term street on the west side before the east side. And then it got deed restricted, but it used to be short-term and long-term, but it still is partially short-term. And these two lots reflect just a flip-flop of that. One is short-term and one long-term. But it is in the current zoning as TR and R1. There's been some questions about like integrity. Is he going to do this with integrity? Is he going to do this right? I think the city keeps us honest with that. But at the same time, there's a motto in the Air Force: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. Served special forces for 14 years. Still serve. I'm going to Israel in 2 days to train the IDF. And I take a very considerable pride in what I do. And I think I'm going to do it well. I think I'm going to do it right. The engineers are going to make sure it's done well, and the city's going to make sure it's done well. But in the end, if you guys don't want the flexible development, that's fine. That's totally fine. It just means a bigger road. It just means more pavement. It doesn't mean that it goes away. I'm trying to give less pavement. And I'll even give those right-of-ways that would have been there, I'll say that has to be grass. I'll say it has to be green. All I was trying to do is shorten a road and make more land happen. And you can say it's more profits. All of them are already sold. They're all friends that I know. Like, I'm not going to make any more money. And so I'm just trying to provide a reasonable solution to a problem that another developer may not have done. Another developer can literally come in on a TR property and put a hotel. And I just want to be real clear that there's this idea here in Port Aransas that, well, I mean, it's been there forever and my house is here and everything used to look like this. We are all culpable in the destruction of the island if you own a house here. Just because you didn't build it and you didn't develop it. We all do it. If you live on this island, you took a part of the land and you changed it. And you paid a realtor to do it and you had a developer do it. All those things happen. And all I'm doing is taking a piece of land and doing the same thing that you are living in. And I'm doing it at 5,000 square feet or larger. If you guys want to deny the flexible development plan, that is fine. We'll just go to fee simple like we're going to be doing. But I'm offering a way that we can reduce pavement. That's all it is. Or privatize the road. You guys want it to be a citywide road with citywide easements and you guys want it private so we maintain it. I'll do that too. Because I would hate just to try to have to maintain a road and go through the city rigmarole doing that when there's potholes. I'd rather just our community fix them. So we can keep it exactly to the city standards as y'all want and privatize it so we are in control of the health of the street. And I mean, that's kind of my pitch. Any questions?
On the concept A, where it says lots 4 and 5 will only restrict building structures to behind, east, and west of 20-foot building line. Is that saying if you go with this concept that this building line here, the pushed back to here?
Correct. Yeah. So I don't, again, this isn't like a play on like, hey, can I get a sweet development in Old Town? It's a development whether it's there. What I'm trying to do is reduce road size and increase lot size, right? And I will even devote those spaces to non-developable, just driveway. So it'd be the same thing as if the city had a right of way. But the problem with the city rules is they're so strict and there's no cuts and there's no nuds, which is why it comes before you. And I like that because that means you guys get eyeballs on it. That means you guys get to call our bluff. So if we're developing land and look at the thing and get a peek behind the curtain. But this is the peak. It's, hey, let's do a citywide street and pave it all the way to the edge. Or, hey, let's just do a little bit bigger lots, take away all the rights to that area by creating easements, right? Or not easements, I guess right-of-ways or I don't know what we call it. Setbacks, thank you. Create larger setbacks that reflect in the city right-of-way. So it's all the same anyways.
How wide's the actual concrete part of a city street? I mean, I know they want a 50-foot right-of-way, but the streets are never 50 feet wide.
28 curb to curb.
Okay, so you'd still
Pretty
get,
standard.
you'd have 11 feet from curb to property line and then 20-foot setback from there. So with the city-owned street, you would still, I mean, you pretty much get the same as what he's.
You wouldn't get a 20-foot, you just have a 20, you'd have a 10-foot right-of-way on each side.
Sure, I mean, the city
In the
owns it,
front.
the city owns it, but the grass is in your yard.
Yeah.
And your pin's just inside the property.
That's right.
So versus doing.
Where you see all those dotted lines.
So the actual amount of pavement, whether we go A or B, really, A or B, the actual amount of pavement exposed is going to be about the same.
So in effect, so we did a, on a road there, we did, let's see what the width is there. We just did a 30-foot, but as far as pavement goes, you know, I was going to stick to like a 25-foot pavement, 24-foot pavement. I just put a 30-foot there for left and right sewer lines. You're going to need 5 feet on the left and 5 feet on the right for sewer and water. It's just a way of space marking that. But the pavement itself would be reduced by length, right? So you see the length in the bottom one there, or that one there, you reduce 50 feet of pavement by 25. So you're reducing, you know, how many 100 square feet that is. And what you're doing, what you're giving, if you go down to concept A, is the last 2 lots just get driveways from the road. They're just going to put a driveway there, a 10-foot driveway to their property. But the setbacks are still the same. Like you're actually getting more surface that drains. And somebody made a comment that 756 square feet of permeable surface doesn't make a difference. It makes a big difference. And if it didn't, we wouldn't have our rules and regulations that say it does. There's calculations for this. And if we're worried about draining to the street with flooding, then the more permeable surface, the better. And I don't think there's anything to argue on that one. The more open space, the better.
Would this project require a preliminary plat before final plat to show?
Yes.
Where it would show drainage?
They could be done together, but.
They could be done at the same time, but it is a major plat, so it would require a preliminary plat and then a final plat and then civil plans.
So drainage, yeah, the whole civil plans with drainage, similar to what we just saw on
Correct. So the plating would come first. The drainage typically comes with a set of civil plans that comes prior to everything being built.
But if our intent is to keep this as permeable as possible, then the intent is less pavement. And people who talk to me, I just did O'Neill Court, and we put in a fire lane that could have been concrete, $6 a square foot. And we're actually putting in a permeable 10-foot addition, which is costing us $12 a square foot. You know, like permeability matters here. And if we can do that and it has the same end result, that's why this flexible development is here.
So,
yeah,
one of my primary concerns is the
sure.
Okay. And you're right, permeable is better than impermeable. But whoever develops it, under any circumstances, I think has got to demonstrate by ordinance that they you're not going to, you're either going to rectify a problem, maybe if the city does it, or not make it any worse. And there are things people can do other than the difference between, it's not a binary choice between permeable and impermeable, right? There's underground storage tanks, there's mitigations, there's all kinds of things that can happen, right? And I'll just speak for myself. I don't have enough information at this point with a big open question with an area that's known flood and the potential impact. There's got to be a lot more detail on how we would mitigate.
So that would come in the plat, right? And what this is doing is saying, do you like the idea? If you like the idea, let me go spend $30,000 in engineering, right? That's what this is saying. If you can still deny it at the replat if it doesn't meet the drainage requirements. But before I go, this is a shop drawing from York. It took him about probably 10 minutes a page. He hasn't done the drainage. This is like, hey, conceptually, this is what we can accomplish. If you say no to this, I'm still gonna have to come to you with the same replat with a 50-foot right of way, and it's gonna be exactly the same. I'm still have to come before you with a drainage plan. And another thing you get with me as an owner is I own the property adjacent, right? I can drain through my property to do this. That's something that if another property owner had, they couldn't do. I may not even have to drain to B. That may not happen if I build it correctly, and it could go that direction. And, you know, I get a lot of shaking heads, and that's fine. And I want to talk offline because I know I don't take up everybody's night. But in the end, when you deny the flexible development, you're saying yes to 50-foot right away with a road dragged all the way across, because that's the next move. That's it. It's a fee simple development. And I'm trying to offer you, a little bit more open space. That's what I'm trying to offer. So.
Where's the 750?
Oh, I apologize. It was in the email that was sent out to the city council. A member wrote.
Richard Watson's email that was handed out to you.
He calculated 746 square feet saved. I calculated it as much higher than that, but even if it was that.
It's the size of the road?
He's saying that by choosing concept A or B, we are only saving 746 square feet of pavement.
Oh, okay. I get you.
Yeah.
But there are calculations for that.
So.
Either way. There was a comment mentioned in the public hearing early on about items missing from the flexible development unit application, but I've never known of such an application. I mean, a lot of the stuff has to be considered with the preliminary plat, the final plat, the building permits, the civil permits.
It's a minimum requirement.
That's what I'm digging for that right now.
It's written in such a way that you guys have that ability to make the determination.
A flexible development proposal must clearly demonstrate how the project deviates from the city's existing design and construction standards and what public or community benefit will be realized.
So that the way that it's worded, you simply ask him if he hasn't already explained it. There is no flexible development application because it allows for just that, so much flexibility in so many areas. It's pushed to you to decide, to make the decision, and then the council to
what's
decide.
Public or community benefit?
Well, the public or community benefit is if you say no, that's fine. I put in the street and it's just way more pavement. The benefit is less pavement, like, and the city doesn't have to maintain it. So there's the two benefits, but either way, as long as, if the drainage works, because the drainage only gets worse with the 50-foot right of way all the way down. If the drainage works for that, it would have worked for this. Does that make sense? If you have a 50-foot right of way with all that pavement and the drainage works for that, it would work for less pavement if at the end when I come together with my plan. So why wouldn't we have more permeable surface if we have the option? Because I still have to come before everybody with a plan to drain this area. And that can be, like you're saying, cross-sectional detention, that can be walls. There's so many different avenues where this can go. But to just start, I see a lot of gavels here where it's like, no, development, no, development, no, development. Well, okay. But then you just put us in a corner where it's like, it's going to be developed. Let's develop it right. Let's develop it in the best. It's going to be developed. Let's develop it in the best possible situation. And that is, I just want everybody to imagine that road curves and that's a parking lot on the top and a hotel on the bottom.
Have you shown the easement? Why were the surveyors out there 5 or 6 times? We don't believe that there is an easement. We don't see it. It hasn't been presented.
Well, I would have to, well, it's not an easement, so I don't, so what you're seeing, that's not an easement, that's a platted road it's a city road. And so you have undedicated roads and dedicated roads. They can be county dedicated, city dedicated. That when you click on that, that's a city dedicated road.
Who decides whether the city builds that road or not?
Sorry, that's not correct.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm incorrect. Am I incorrect? Is that it? Can the city answer if that's a city dedicated road?
That appears to be on the county rolls. I mean, obviously, when we get to the point where we look at surveys.
And my survey says it's a city dedicated road.
But if not, I guess I would ask, if it isn't ours, whose is it?
Who decides whether to build a city dedicated road?
That's essentially a city council decision based on priorities and workshops.
You might never build a city dedicated road, right? We have one out at
I can tell you
PG
what,
Access Road at 1B. They haven't been built for 50 years.
well, what rises to the occasion is how many people is it going to serve? And an access road's a different animal than a.
All I'm saying is there's a lot
road.
of things that are out there plotted.
Yeah.
On boards.
But it
with
doesn't
easements.
mean that it's not a road. And so if somebody were to buy that lot that's adjacent and want to develop it, then they would have to improve the road. And that could be as simple as
So
that is, they're allowed to develop their property.
Avenue-
So it would we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't pay for the street.
You would just take it over.
Correct.
The developer would build the road, pay the expense of the road, but then the city would have to adopt the road.
No, not necessarily. If they wanted to develop prior to us putting it on the agenda and having it rise to the priority, and they would have to provide a fire accessible, improved surface road, could be caliche, whatever would support a fire truck, and on their own nickel. And when and if it ever rose to the priority on a city council, on a bond program, then it would be built to city street specs after that.
Yes, but any city dedicated road, easement or otherwise, platted or plotted, is the decision of the city at when to build it. If to build it, when to build it. It's a city road and they decide. Same thing that's going on with the access road.
Yeah, so they don't have to, but I can build it. Like
a developer can build it
Yeah.
to city
Right.
specs.
If the city agrees.
Correct.
Through a plat.
Well,
If the city agrees.
Right.
Right?
Marty, it's a road. It's not an improved road, so they have access to it.
Yeah, it's even if I drive over dirt,
it is a public road serving all those lots
Yeah.
adjacent. So the city has already given approval. It's a platted road. So if they want to,
even though there's not asphalt there, it's technically a dirt road.
We're not going to.
Well, we can though. It is a city road. It's just not built.
Down later.
It's just not built. So the city has approved it. It's a road that goes where it ends right there unless we find otherwise.
Can you get another picture up there?
But they have to improve it if they want a permit to build at the end of that, they're going to have to improve it to at least meet fire standards. So the city has approved it. I want to be clear on that. If in fact, and it looks like that is the road, which when we got down we'd have to have a survey and prove that, but it looks like every other odd end of the road we have. So it.
Well, I mean, and that's not really in the end, we either see this together or we don't. Like we either see the benefit or we don't. There's these little it's either a lot of people here don't want development, and I get that. So if you want to just throw the hammer out of development, that's fine, but it's going to be developed. And if that's the case, what's the best way to develop it? And I'm telling you, a parking lot at a hotel isn't. 6 lots that are more permeable is. And I really believe that that's the case. And I think just, if there's any other questions that I can answer, but I think everybody's already on kind of where
Gilby.
they are.
Which option has the least pavement? Option A, right?
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 4.6 flex 22-000535 flexible development request for Agape Cove for item A or option A.
I'll second.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
Marty Phelan,
No.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Leslie Smith,
No.
Barney Farley,
No.
and Chad Schmidas.
Yes.
We're in the same situation as our dune permit.
Am I allowed to ask a question on that following comments or no?
Sure. Why not?
So because I can always represent later as well. What could I have done or brought to the table besides not developing for you?
I don't think it meets the requirements of a flexible unit development.
It does.
That's just my opinion. I don't think there's enough community benefit. That's it.
Oh,
And it's
okay,
not even,
community
it's not
benefit,
even an
okay.
issue on the drainage, because I understand that the drainage is going to come up later. Just for anybody that's curious also about it. It's just, I don't think it meets requirements. I don't see the community benefit.
But you do see that the other option is a 50-foot wide.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand that. But I mean, I also had concerns about fire and EMS access on the road, but
Okay.
I don't think it meets the requirements. That's
Okay.
all.
And I'm a pretty accessible guy too. We can certainly talk after.
Sure.
Shoot the breeze.
Okay. Yep. All right.
Bless you.
I saw the public benefit is left pavement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
It
certainly
didn't
mine.
seem-
Save it, don't pave it, right, Barney?
All right.
Unless
I guess that's right.
we're moving on to the next same topic, basically.
Yeah.
Do we know if that's actually a street or not at this time?
It is a street.
Right, until I get a development plan and a plat, until I have reason to look at it, and I certainly will just after this, but it appears that it is the extension that just dead ends. It's not unusual to find those around town. It certainly looks like it is.
So we don't know.
Well, my survey says it's a city street.
His best opinion is it's a street.
Yeah,
and the county
it's-
verifies.
And I've
We
not
have
seen the
engineers that
survey,
say.
but until I saw something otherwise, we would take it as a street.
It dies-
County has it as a street.
It dies at the end of your property?
At 12th Street, it's like if 12th Street didn't turn it,
Yeah.
it just went straight.
Right, but
It dies
stops
right
at
there.
the end of your property.
Correct, sir.
But I'll send out an email tomorrow to everybody just to confirm.
Nobody brought this,
It does.
nobody brought up that it wasn't a street until today's meeting, so
Yeah,
we didn't look into
so-
it.
Those are all things that have to be.
But I'm
I's dotted,
gonna
T's crossed before.
now out of
anything goes.
curiosity,
Yeah,
I'm just,
that's true.
it won't take long to confirm.
Oh, yeah.
My guess is it is.
I guess I
If
said,
there's an easement.
little
find out.
late now, but because I didn't make the caveat, but I would like to see that building line pushed back to the 20-foot that you agreed
Sure.
to in the statement there.
Yeah, I'll make sure that the building line is pushed back to the 20-foot marks.
I mean, if you're gonna go with the.
Smaller road.
More yard, less house.
That's correct.
it's, You know, let's stick with that.
Yes,
Say,
sir.
Okay, this part that's coming back into here is going to be used for more yard or less house.
And when I resubmit the flex plan with just that on there for the council, it'll have that on there for your review, sir.
Thank you. Well, you might as well stay up there. Item 4.7, discuss and take action on alternative parking plan for Sip Yard, applicant Kelby McCann, property location 123 West Cotter Avenue.
All right, here we are again. Exciting things for the SIP yard. All right, what I'm here for again, because this is my thing, permeable surfaces. Like, I thought I was on one of the few people, and I'm hoping to continue to be the person that fights against pavement and fights against that kind of density and all the things that I generally work towards. So if you guys go through my flexible development plan, which I gave a slideshow to you, I'll have that slideshow in front of you. Awesome. What we're proposing is converting the current subway, used to be the subway parking lot. We have parking there now and converting that into a park and alternative and like gazebos and sitting area and game area. And to do so, we'd be reliant on an alternative parking plan. And that would be using the parallel parking that we have now and converting it to golf cart parking on the edges, and taking into consideration that even now, as we're 11 spaces over, but that doesn't include the non-included 8 parking spaces that are in the city right away that are historically been grandfathered in. So we're actually 19 spaces already over our calculation. And once you do all the switching and going back and forth, we end up with 115 total parking spots. And it's pretty awesome. But this is our pitch. We're looking to create an open space. That's what we're trying to do. And it'll be a place for families and games. I've walked it with one council member and a P&Z member to get their notes. I did my best here. And I'm hoping that y'all see the value in what we're trying to do. But any questions?
Can you look that slide up real quick?
Right, so I'm reading this right. You got your property line here in Cotter Avenue. And is this a fence, a wall?
Right now it's nothing, but
What's that?
right now it's nothing, but we're gonna put a curb there. There will be a curb. It'll be currently at the same level it is now. So it won't actually go up it won't be raised. The rest of the property, and this is part of the elevation, the central portion of the property that kind of takes a shape of a rectangle there is raised 3.5 feet because it has to meet BFE for the restaurants. And so around it, you have parking that's lower than the actual SIP yard.
This is where I'm gonna kind of blow this up a little bit.
Hit me.
Our city has, it's a policy, it's not an ordinance, that parking for golf carts is 6 feet by 10 feet.
So those are 7 by 10.
Okay. The average 6-seater golf cart, mine's 12 feet 4 inches long. We were talking about this earlier. Let's call it 12.5 feet to be conservative. Some can go up as long as 13 feet. So if you've got a curve on this side and then you have a 10-foot pathway on this side, that's really only leaving you 7.5 feet of passage, much less ability to back out and turn that thing to come back this direction. Or
We also played around with doing angled parking, and that we could do when you throw them to an angle instead of straight in parking.
It would definitely be more feasible because this,
Yeah.
I just see being a
In fact, my original plan was like that, and there was me and the engineer York had a conversation about that, and that's doable. You lose 2 spaces on each side, so you get 23 and 23, and you can angle that. So like you're saying, you're not eating. If you have a 12-foot golf cart, it won't do as much damage to that, and you'd get much longer spaces that way.
That makes it a one-way street.
Yeah, and so for sure, it makes it a one-way, and that's actually why we went to this, is because this makes it a non-one-way. That was the exact conversation. Thankfully, with Alistair and Cotter, it can make sense that way, doing a one-way street.
Can we go to the next frame? It's got more detail.
This does?
Just to be clear though, the golf cart
See
space,
Alistair.
it's not coming and going from the streets. You actually.
No,
on
no,
the
no.
property,
Yeah, there's a
And
there-
then
yeah.
it's parking.
That's correct. So
Clarification
you go
purposes.
up. I wish there was a mic over there sometimes. Can I walk over there? Okay.
It's smaller for everybody.
Just talk louder.
Yeah. So the property currently consists of on-ramps that exist predated. And so you would on-ramp here, and you would, this little driveway between the property and the parking spots, and then you exit over here on the corner. There's no backing out or pulling in off of Alistair or Cotter, like that. That's something we eliminated entirely. And this one is the same way. So you have an on-ramp here and an off-ramp here. And so we could easily make that a one-way and just a circular flow. And I would recommend, as we had it before, that you off ramp out of the intersection. You actually come this way with it and you off ramp further away from the intersection. So you come in close, you leave far, and you do the same here.
How do you get in there?
I'm sorry?
Cross traffic. Get in there?
Well, over here, you're with the flow of traffic, right? And then if you need to get in here, I mean, you could make a left-hand turn, I guess. You could make a left-hand turn. However, you can also just take this street, wrap it around and go in. Like, just depends on what direction you're going. You also still have this area. So
We do that with the streets full of cars.
so when I turn into the candy store when I'm going the opposite direction. I mean, people make turns opposite directions and there's a turning lane. And so, I think we've all crossed the street. So, I don't think that's really the major issue, but I understand that having a runway is what I would call it, is important. And so it takes the golf carts off of the street corners, like in this corner, and it puts them on an on-ramp and into parking. And again, this is just us. Like we're about to submit building plans. We've already had the site plan approved for the concept as it is. This is again just another way of saying, hey, we actually increased parking significantly here, which is a big complaint down there. I remember Trout Street when we first started going. One of their concerns was parking, and we add parking spaces this way. We already have 11 over. Add the 8 that aren't included on white, or 19 over, plus the golf cart. So
Kelby, you'd agree to try to make them angled?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I like where you're going with it, but in its current fashion, we could go outside and try it in Marty's golf cart because he drove his here tonight. I don't see it working.
No, and we can angle them and represent if that's what you guys would like to do, or if you guys want to, send it up with the caveat that they are angled, because then council's going to have to approve it anyways.
I think it'd be better if it comes back through us, because you may change some of the flows too and stuff, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so
These are head in where you got them.
Correct, sir.
Come in the runway and then you make a right angle.
We could take this back to the comprehensive plan. I personally feel like our adopted policy on golf carts is way too small.
Yeah.
Lengthwise.
Well, especially with 6-seaters and 8-seaters.
I saw an 8-seater this afternoon. I was like, well, that thing would block the road plus the parking there.
Yeah. And and you're 100% right. And so 6x10, that's what we made it 7, just because turning, radius on a golf cart isn't always that great. So those are actually 7x10, but we can still create the 7-foot width, and we can just angle them and get a better length out of it.
A rodeo right out here in the parking lot.
Yeah, we'll draw some lines.
Cones out.
Are there any other concerns besides that?
That was, the alternative parking plan really doesn't allow for golf carts, but that's why it's brought in front of these commissioners, because we know how many golf carts are here. I promise Ms. Fulton, as soon as he finishes, you can have it. I don't have any concerns with golf carts taking the place of vehicles. I love the idea of the great lawn deal and all that. I mean, bicycles are the only thing that could actually.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
replace
Where's
cars
your
and
bicycle park?
So actually, we believe it or not, grandfathered in. Look, if you walk down Allister, on the left-hand side, we have 3 large bicycle racks. I don't include that in my parking plan.
Let's add some more.
Yeah, and we're all about looking future of Port Aransas, and right now we saw a 10% increase in golf cart ownership this year. It's going up. We need to make space for it and accommodate for it. And we are underparked in a lot of ways in Port Aransas. I think we're building a parking lot right out, because we're underparked in Port Aransas, and this solves some of those issues. And I'd be happy. Is there any? I just don't want to come back and have another change. Like, oh well, we also want. Is there anything else you could see?
So Kelby, so the plans that council has approved that include golf carts, have 201 included that those spaces be marked golf cart only.
Yeah.
So again, not my risk, but your risk that, again, if they're golf cart only and you don't have 22, 23 golf carts, and you're ended up with nobody in there that could have been a car to I just want to make, obviously you know your way around, but again, it probably would be required to be golf cart only. So that's that wouldn't be a problem.
And did you have a question for Kelby or a comment?
Yes, I do. The sidewalks along both Potter and Allister there are very narrow, broken up. I think they've been even torn up since you've taken over the property. And that's it all along Cotter, going to that's the only side of the street with sidewalks. And they're very narrow. Two people cannot pass. One bicycle cannot pass. It's too dangerous to ride a bicycle on that street. And I don't think that anything should be impinging on wider sidewalks. We widen the sidewalks all around town.
We won't be touching the sidewalks. Those are
No,
in,
they need to be wider there. It's
Oh.
dangerous.
but
It's really
I
dangerous.
can't.
That's a city.
Okay.
Parking plan doesn't preclude wider sidewalks, which are definitely needed.
Okay.
Well, I think that if we, especially with the comprehensive master plan and with the park plan, I think it's really important that people speak up and put a lot of input in on that, because when we're talking about saying making things more bikeable with the lanes, sidewalks and stuff like that, like I think right now is the opportunity. I don't think that the sidewalks necessarily are, say, Kelby's responsibility. It is the city's responsibility. I understand the concerns with the width and everything like that. But I mean, this is an excellent opportunity for everybody to get involved. And I mean, we really, I love seeing everybody biking in town, obviously, the next item that's coming up. But if we want it safer, we need to do a little bit more. And
Well, and we don't want to create grief for you either,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Parking might be impinging upon the opportunity.
So we'll be putting.
All the sidewalks are in right of way. It shouldn't, private property has no bearing on our ability to widen or put in a sidewalk. That's all public right of way. If there's room and city council so deems it a priority and budgets for it, then that's how they happen.
Is there room to?
I run those sidewalks.
Without getting on this?
I think you're pretty close to the street. I'm trying to think of those. And Cotter is unusual because some areas have a greater, part of the street is wider and it narrows down about at Grossy Real Estate. So there's potential for some areas to be wider, but I think the right of way is choked down as you approach Allister.
And
whatever's between the sidewalk now and the street is what there is to use for public right of way.
You wouldn't be able to use his private
Yeah,
property
his
for
private.
sidewalks anyway, regardless.
And just so in the future, when you guys see this again, what we're proposing there in the park area right now is, it's going to be a parking lot. It's going to be paved. It's going to be the whole thing, right? So what we're doing is we're eliminating that and we're turning it into grass area. So it's going to be open space again.
Just for the record, so that we just need it up there.
Where is your property line in relation to the curb of the street
Well, so the
on
so the
Cotter
50-foot
and Dallas?
I'd have to have a surveyor has done that. We've designed within it. My engineer takes the CAD file, he marries it with the surveyor, and we've designed within our private property line outside of the right of way. So
probably 2 or 3 feet on the other side of the sidewalk. Roughly would be the property line, my guess is.
Yes.
So you got the curb, then the sidewalk. and then there's-
Curb, sidewalk, all that's public, and then probably another foot or two.
So you couldn't bump out a sidewalk there?
So
Well, there.
what I've learned in researching this the last couple of days is that kind of the going number is if you've got, you have a 10-foot parking place, it's multiplied by about 1.35 is what they consider that you need to have.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, the absolute minimum is the same size as the parking place itself, which is what you have here. But if you have 12.5-foot golf carts in there,
Barney, if you look behind you.
the angled parking probably solves a whole lot.
So where that truck is.
And I'm remiss because that was my
That
original
telephone
plan.
pole right
My
there.
engineer talked me out of it.
That telephone pole right there is
Yeah, teaching
probably
us
the public
yeah.
side. So the distance between that pole and the existing sidewalk is about all you got.
Okay, is there not a restriction from the curb of the street to the parking lot? He's using his setback to park on, right? Which is done all the time.
Property line's probably inside that.
It is. It's
Probably
it's
right
where
inside.
where the poles are roughly.
So
Probably most everybody's house here, you're parking on setbacks.
Is there a limit to that? I mean, I know, you get like, you got a 20-foot setback. I presume that's from the back of the curb.
No, that's from property
it's from
line.
property.
Property line, okay.
Yeah, everything's.
Yeah, so
measured
you
from
have
property
a
line.
50-foot right of way, and then I front, and that's my setback. That's what the street I front. So you have a 20-foot setback there.
Yeah.
And
So can you park right on your property line
Yes. Yeah.
with the setback?
Mhm.
Yes.
You just can't build a building there.
Yeah.
You just can't build a building.
Or maybe a pool
You
one
have to
day.
be off, your driveway can be all the way to your property line, but you can't count parking.
Yeah, you want to come
outside
up?
of it.
Yeah, get out of your way.
Well, we're having this discussion. I want to clarify something that's in our codes currently. I'm sorry, but parking restrictions, these are prohibited parking things, and it's section 23.116. Prohibited parking of vehicles shall apply at all times. No person shall park a vehicle at any time upon or along the following streets or within 15 feet of any said street. And one of the streets is Cotter from the ferry landing to the station, and the other one is Allister from Cotter to Avenue G. Okay, so that is it there in our codes. And it's very clear that we can't allow parking even in the 15-foot thing.
That's,
All right,
that-
and
that's
the
not,
other thing I
that's
do
not the
wanna say-
interpretation, Kat. The 15 feet from like an intersection, they can't
It
be.
was very clear. If you go back and read it, it says within 15 feet of these listed streets.
On the street.
On the street,
On the
so
street.
that has
Not
nothing to
on
do with private
not on
property.
Private property.
This is all.
The
pub-
other thing that is important to remember is that we can't allow people to come over the curves or whatever, and we didn't allow, I don't think there's anything grandfathered over there anymore, because we didn't allow Shanna, who did get a reduced setback for the storefront thing in order to put some parking in the back. We didn't allow any front parking. The other one was Janice Snow and her family. And her uncle, aunt, and uncle, when they came up here, and if Nick were here, he would remember this. They came up here, they came back to the appeal, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, even asking to be allowed to continue to use the parking over there at Rock Cottages or Laughing Horse, whichever one it was. And what ended up happening there was it was denied both times. They said it wasn't a hardship. They wouldn't let them do it. We have tried to get the parking deal off the streets, and we need to remember this is a congested intersection, and it always is in the summer. And it's bad enough in the summer as it is, and we can't treat it like this isn't going to be a problem because we're already having problems. Thank you.
Kelby, does any of this parking, is any of this parking on the public street?
No, the only parking that's on a public street, when we bought the subway lot over there, I call it the subway lot. There was a parking or head-in parking. If you guys remember right, you could turn right off of Allister right into and there was parking along the street, and then there's 8 below. It actually it wrapped around it, kind of crazily. It had a ton of that parking. And we kept the grandfathered 8 spaces there. They don't count towards our parking at all. They just happen to be there in their legal parking lot spots, but they don't count towards our parking plan. So, but they are there, and people do use them. So there are even more spaces that are proposed. It sounds like, if I'm hearing correctly, I'm going to resubmit to the next P&Z with angled parking. How our traffic flow is going to look. You guys can reassess it then.
If anybody feels really strongly about passing it or denying it,
You withdraw it.
that's what I say, withdraw and bring it back to where it works.
Sure. And do you guys have any other changes that I can make or consider making prior to coming back?
I would just make sure you have the flow on it.
Couple
I think
bikes.
It's gonna be important for people.
Couple bikes. Got it.
Yeah, the bikes would be good.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, item 4.8, discuss and take action on alternative parking plan for proposed wine bar at 119 West Robbins Avenue, applicant Leslie Smith.
Hi, there's a magic trick. I moved. You're gonna make me do all the talking this time too?
What? Yes. It's your plan.
Well, basically what I'm proposing to do is instead of putting in 3 parking spaces, like standard parking spaces in the front of the property on 119 Roberts, there'll still be a handicap spot, but the other 2 will be 3 golf cart parking spaces. So it kind of will help preserve the aesthetic of the older building a little bit. I think it won't seem quite as congested up in the front. But I think we should have plenty of room. I don't think that's going to be an issue. And then we are also doing a lot of bike parking on the side of the building along with a green space area, essentially. So, and we've already submitted our landscape plan and everything like that. And I don't know. You guys have any questions? The goal essentially though is the building is from probably the early 30s, maybe late 20s. We did not want to have to remove the building to put in, I mean, it's, when you look outside the window, you can see the Mercer house at the history area, and we can see the Gibbs cottages, and we kind of just wanted to kind of keep that aesthetic going on. And believe me, I've had quite a few people question my sanity saving this older building, but that's why we've kind of made a point of putting a lot of the parking in the back and whatnot too. I know it was an option that we could have came and did a shared parking with Treasures, and opted to try to keep as much of the parking on space and make sure that was going to work out for us. So.
Does everybody know the use? I mean, what you're
Oh,
planning?
yes, I'm sorry. It's,
I mean,
it's going to be a little wine, or maybe with little light tapas, things like that. Kind of more of a community oriented. The goal was not to turn this building into a short-term rental, which was suggested to me by a couple of people. We kind of want to have this for community use. I believe it's something fun, and people get to visit the older house, and just think it just kind of adds to the area. So I think everybody's going to be very happy whenever they see it. I'm excited about it. So, but yeah, it is a bicycle themed wine bar. That was one of the reasons why we're asking for, with the alternative plan, a couple of spaces to be considered for bicycle parking.
How in love with you. Go ahead.
I'm looking at the size of the parking spaces.
And I have to apologize for my drawing. It's not the prettiest. I got frustrated with the program I was using.
It's okay. So I see that you have straight-in parking for the golf carts, and they're the minimum 6x10.
Yes.
Is that something that you'd consider angling and making an appropriate size to where they can?
I mean, I could pull them closer up to the porch if I needed to. I was trying to leave as much as I could for, flower beds and whatnot. So
How far from the property line are you to the street?
from the property line to the street, I think it's, oh goodness.
It looks like a pretty good distance.
It is.
So the backs of those things aren't hanging out.
No, believe me, it's definitely not going to be an issue. So even with the longer ones, I don't think that's going to be a problem. And I forgot to add to, every one of the surfaces on the property are pervious, everything. Every bit of the parking in the back, the driveway, up in the front, it's all permeable surfaces. So you're not putting a piece of asphalt, you're not putting concrete in there.
How in
Nothing.
love with are you with that back building?
That back building, we would really, really prefer to keep it. It's an older structure also, so.
I think I'm reading this right. If the lot's 50 feet wide and you got 18 feet in the parking place, then from the back of the parking place all the way to the other property line, you've got 32 feet. If the building wasn't there, you've got plenty of room to back out and turn around. But right now it looks, I don't know, I don't have the exact figures here, but it looks like you may only have 14 or 15 feet.
I think it's about 15 or so. And when I had talked to the inspector about it, he felt that it was enough for the area to be able to back up. I mean, we can do head in, but I mean, I'd lose a spot, I think.
Is that parking?
That's the parking. We have the smaller boxes in the middle are for the bike areas.
Out front?
On the side. The golf carts are in the front along with the handicap spot.
Down here?
Does the angled parking help your flow? I mean, does that?
I don't think it's
really.
I don't think it's going to affect it a whole lot. Those
are the bike right there.
Yeah, those are the bike ones right there.
Almost feel like if you shifted the 3 of the 5 on the one side, shifted those north and then turned the other 2 that way, because like my truck's 21 feet long, right? So I mean, if I come in there's no way I'm coming out. I'd be like Austin Powers in the hallway.
Well, there is a sizable area behind that building too, that there's nothing there too. So I suppose we could designate those areas as oversized parking also.
I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but somebody was going to tell you at some point, I think if you only have one parking place for handicap, it's got to be van size, which needs an 8-foot aisle versus a
That's,
5-foot.
I did 9 by,
But the aisle, it's marked as 5 feet on here between the golf cart. I mean, it's easy. You could just shift the carts over a little bit.
yeah,
But I think you need 8 feet. I looked it up today so I could give it to you.
I think it's 5.
It's, oh, where was it on page 6 here? I did a lot of parking study there. Sorry.
And I don't know if we occupancy, have you computed what the occupancy is is it on there, what the?
No.
I mean,
The minimum number of accessible parking spaces must be provided consistent with the chart below. At least 1 out of every 8 spaces, but no less than 1 must be van accessible. And then when you get down to, where is it down here?
Did you say van accessible?
Van accessible. And then, hold on. Okay. Oh. Oh, covered? That's covered parking. Sorry, I did read it in here, but my brain is getting tired now. Oh, here we go. Each accessible parking space must either have an access aisle at least 60 inches wide or a van accessible aisle at least 96 inches wide.
So it's 60.
So you got.
Yeah, 5 foot.
But no, it's a van accessible is 96 and you have to have 1 van space. So your handicap space is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that little gap between there and the golf cart space would need to shift over. I mean, the city may not have a problem with it. That's how the Texas accessibility.
Well, we defer to TDLR and just require you adhere to ADA requirements. We just don't have
So essentially
the
you
expertise.
Spaces over 3
Yes.
feet.
Yeah, just shift everything 3 feet and you got it.
Yeah.
Can you drive down the side of the house?
Not on the right side.
You get to drive
15
here,
feet.
right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And park here.
Yes.
15 feet wide.
So what happens if you put your handicap in the back? Or you have more
I
room?
could, but the goal was to put the handicap in the front so it's
Yeah.
more accessible.
Well, then that aisle would have to run all the way to that 96-inch aisle would have to run all the way to
Yeah.
the street.
I mean, no, I think what he means in the very back.
Sure,
No,
but then you'd have to have an
Put your ramp
accessible
in the
route
back.
and it would have to be that 96.
Yeah,
That
or
aisle would have to be marked and all the way to the street.
Not feasible. to put
That
it
would
in
be
the
hard.
back.
I mean, the idea is to make it easier on those guys,
Yeah.
right?
I don't get, you can enter from the back, right, with your wheelchair, right?
You can find a place to put a ramp.
I don't know, probably through the kitchen.
Yeah, well, and I mean,
I'm just saying there's a little more room to work with back there.
yeah, the building itself is almost ground level. It's pretty low. And there are no intentions whatsoever of raising it because I think it would kind of mess up the aesthetic of
It's
the
a
older
cool
building.
building. I've worked across the street for a year, and so I looked
Yeah.
at it. every day. I like it.
Like I said, it's gonna be really cute when it's done, so it's looking a little sad right now. But yeah, the ramp it's not gonna be very extensive, so.
And your golf cart parking is going to be labeled appropriately.
Yes, it's gonna be labeled appropriately.
That's all part of it.
You know, I don't know who makes the call on the 3 foot versus 5 foot. That's just the way I read it. I don't know if it, you know, when this goes to the next level. I mean, I think the back needs some adjustment to make it just workable, but is that a building department call when it comes back and says, hey, we need 8 feet here, we don't need 5 feet here? Or
I'm sorry, what are we talking about?
Yeah, to be able to,
accessible.
Right here.
no, I think that he needs to,
The code says you have to have at least 1 van spot. So if you only have 1 parking handicap spot, it's got to
And
be
if it's a van, it has to be
And
90.
then you have to have 8 feet on this side.
So here's the
then
thing.
This could shift.
yeah,
Maybe these two could turn and these could shift up and it may kind of fix all the encumbrances of the building. Get that back.
In most instances, we're covered because if the construction is $50,000 or more, we require that TDLR be notified and they're assigned a number, which
It's a
means.
RAS number, whatever that is.
Yes, well, they're assigned a project number, which means they're on notice. Now, most people hire a RAS to facilitate that.
we're under that.
Thomas J. Henry usually is the one that takes care of it for us.
Right, so you might not have to be registered with them, but you would
Yeah.
have to still meet all of their same
Yeah, like
requirements.
our restroom has to be compliant because we're changing the use of
The
it.
5 foot span.
Yes, it is, and it's already, yeah,
So
we're
like,
good.
very few fall under that 50,000 threshold. So if it didn't, yeah, we'd probably want just some assurance that,
Yeah,
from a design professional that says you meet ADA to cover it.
Yeah, no, the building is being kept very much originals though. There's very little, we're doing sheetrock and making sure floors are all the same level, openings and.
So is the recommendation that we just have her go back and redraw with the changes and come back and represent?
Just to get, so what's your required?
Keep working
I
on
missed
the
it.
parking.
What's your required parking? I mean, is all of this required? I'm just trying to figure out.
So what's occupancy?
Or
intended occupancy?
Well, the goal was I think we were gonna try to do about 44.
So that's 11 spots.
Yeah, that's, you know,
Does this fall under restaurant, not the nightclub? There's not one that says bar.
Restaurant and bar, yeah, we have bar nightclub, but it's essentially the same.
Well, nightclub's 75 square feet per.
Restaurant bar though. I mean, I think restaurants
The code
like
defines
bar,
restaurant. Doesn't say bar.
it's still one spot for
Yeah.
every 4 seats, standing spaces or like that.
that was
Right.
that was the goal to
Night-
make this as economically
I mean, look,
feasible as
Nightclubs
possible.
are a little,
Oh, yeah.
nightclubs are a little different. Restaurant bars, I think, fall into the same category.
Yeah, or per space.
Is there parking on Roberts?
Yes, there is, but we're
Oh.
trying to get as much on the property itself, so. And
No, that's
like I
fine.
said, we could do something with the adjacent property owner. We'd prefer not to.
Would you be willing to work on some adjustments of this and then bring it back, or, I mean, because I'm just afraid of, and you could tell me better, Rick, I mean, but if this comes to y'all's desk now, is this the fact that there's not enough turnaround space in the back? Because with 18 feet, I know what Parsons is gonna say. He's gonna come back and say, we need 27 feet behind it to turn around. So those back ones are gonna have to.
Well, no, I mean,
Minimum's 18, right?
Yeah, minimum would be 18.
We typically use 24. Again, that's why we rely on a design professional to whatever they say is adequate. And normally that'll be an engineer because they're familiar with the traffic patterns. We've always used 24.
Okay. So 24, but right now we've got roughly 15.
Yeah.
So I guess.
So maybe try to reconfigure.
Well,
that
I had it
area.
reconfigured in a different fashion and I talked to Don and he said it was enough to back up. Because the goal is we're trying to get the spaces to be able to keep the building there. If it's not economically viable, then we end up in a situation where we end up having a short-term rental there or we tear a building down.
It's just a restaurant.
Yeah.
The little wood building in the back is what would
So we would have
dictate
to
whether it was a
see if
short-term
it's
rental or
closer
not.
to a restaurant or closer to.
No.
We would say this.
No, she's just saying they're trying to keep the building.
We're trying to keep the building because the building is so old, it adds to the aesthetic in the community. We're trying to leave the exterior of the building so low.
75 square feet.
You can
That
put
is
stuff back there.
Yeah, we're trying to get those parking spaces in the back and whatnot so that
Maybe
we
not
can.
all is lost. What would happen if the building was moved back? You do something about this little building. Would that be a more efficient use of the space?
I don't think that moving that building is
I don't think that's gonna work out.
yeah, I don't think that's gonna work out.
No?
No, I don't.
Tough sheds.
Yeah.
On the
I
frame?
mean, it's an option, but
Yeah.
it seems like you're real close, Leslie, and I look forward to coming and having a glass of wine with you there. But I would recommend that you maybe try to tweak the parking a little bit to where it'd be easier to get out around that wood.
And really, which ones, just those, if I labeled them 1 through 5, just number 2 and 3?
Those are the ones that have.
Yeah, I actually had them the other direction and I was told to change it. That I could get more back there.
Oh, across
Yeah, I
the
actually
back.
had a different, yes, I actually had it different.
And if
You could, yeah.
Would there be a 10-foot setback if
Not
there
for-
was a building back there? In back?
For a structure, yes, there's a 10-foot
Rear,
setback.
But it's 20 on the rear now.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. 4 and 5 are fine, because you can come back here and turn.
You move there, so
What
you
the
go back as
originally
well.
what I had was on the back lot, there were 3 parking spaces, so change the direction. And then I had one, like where the bike parking would be, like it would have been like right behind that. So it would have been one less parking.
More bike parking? You could get rid of. I mean,
Yeah.
really, you could get rid of.
No, but that's
one,
actually,
shift one up, and
how I had it.
I mean, because our alternative parking plan allows for substitution with bikes. So
Yes,
it's a-
yes, no, I mean, and like I could scratch on it now if that was enough just to get it approved. That's actually how I had the original plans.
So surprisingly, our alternative parking plan, the way it reads, you can substitute bicycles for cars. Golf carts aren't in there, so that's why it has to come to all of us to hear
Yes.
if we're gonna allow golf carts in there, but everybody does because it's a big part of our town.
And is the substitute 1-for-1 or is it?
For bike.
There is nothing.
There's not really
There's
a,
nothing.
there's not really a set standard.
What have we done in the past?
We've never done bikes in the
What
past.
about golf carts? Is that one?
One car for one golf cart.
And that's not even written in the ordinance, but that's.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's acceptable to you guys, I can just move instead of the 5 spaces, like I originally had it, where it was 3 to the back. And then it was one of them behind the golf carts. So I would lose one of the spaces, so. And all the spaces, and there was most certainly 24 feet between the back of that one and the other ones.
So essentially what you're doing is proposing to go back to your original drawing.
Yes, basically.
Okay.
Turtles.
And that still gives you the 11.
No, it would actually give me 10. It wouldn't give me the 11.
And you just change your occupancy to 40. Is that?
Yes, that's basically what would happen. In lieu of having to wait another month.
Yeah, the city council may authorize a reduction in the number of required off-street parking spaces for developments or uses that make special provisions to accommodate bicyclists. Examples of accommodations with bicycle lockers, employee shower facilities and dressing areas. I don't know what.
I would assume that's for like employees.
Yeah, employees riding
you know.
bikes, but it says bicycle parking is item number 3. I mean, the first sentence does say to accommodate bicyclists. There you go.
But yeah, I'm changing the orientation and losing one of them. Definitely, I could do that. Not a problem.
Get your Tetris on.
Cool.
I had so many problems with that program, and I am not a drafter or developer for blueprints, so that was a little bit different for me.
So can we make a motion to approve as amended?
Well, we haven't seen the amendment, so.
Well, she wants to.
Well, that's just tell me.
I'm saying, yeah, just
I would like to ask a question.
sure.
Let's just say, if she did move the house, it's not too likely, back to the back of the lot. Is she then required to do the entire, bring the house up to, like you're starting with the new house?
Bring it all.
What is that structure?
It is on a very,
I mean,
it's on some very interesting blocks of cement that have river rocks embedded into it. It's old.
But is it a
It's pure. It's a
bedroom,
It was
storage?
It was a 2-bedroom house.
Are you talking about the building in back?
Yeah.
It's just storage.
Yeah, it's a garage.
That's what you're talking about, Barney, right? The building in
That
back.
little, no, now I'm talking about the big house.
Oh,
Yeah, Barney.
Pushed it in the back, and
wouldn't
then
be
you got
able
all
to-
this room in one place to park your cars. I'm just saying, didn't are you obligated to make a lot bigger project out of?
Probably be only cost effective to tear it and start over. with.
Yeah, and that's the goal. We're not trying to move the house. We're not trying to tear anything down. We're
Right.
just trying to get parking spaces in there.
Yeah,
So
well,
like I said, I can easily just change the orientation because this still has to go in front of city council also. So, I mean, we could do an approval contingent that I make those changes on it. So
This is what I have on that is make the aisle for the handicap spot 8 feet.
Yes.
just So it doesn't get kicked back.
that's correct.
So make sure I'm hearing all this right. We remove 1 car spot,
Mhm.
which would be, if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could push 1.
Yeah.
Or you could push 2 of them further north, leave the other 2 further south to where they could back up this way and then come out. And then you lose, let's just say, number 3. Is there anything?
Put a
else?
golf cart there.
It's not a terrible idea.
Well, you already had plans originally though, right? I mean, you're just.
Well, no,
going back to the-
I'm open for any additional spaces
I'm just saying,
because
if
whatever
if
makes
as a
it,
commission, we're gonna make it, at least we all.
whatever
understand
makes
what's
it
gonna
more
get changed
economically
before.
feasible.
Yeah, no.
But on this
Makes-
one, you're not
gives it
gonna,
the
you're not
ability
gonna
to be
ask
able
it,
to
come,
stay.
you're not gonna ask them
We're not
to
gonna
come
ask
back?
them to come back.
Okay.
We're not talking 50 places that don't work.
Yeah, no, this is just a minor tweak. So
So I have removed the 1 spot, so
Mhm.
that'll take your occupancy to 40 on that, and then shift it around where you got clearance there, and then is there anything else?
that's it. And then the aisle.
Yes, the 8-foot aisle for the handicap spot.
Yes.
what are you calling an aisle? I'm sorry.
The
It's
for
the
the handicap
handicap
spot, you're
access
required to have
aisle.
an aisle beside the handicap spot.
So when the van opens
Oh,
up the
you
door,
mean the
so
width,
that comes
the
up.
width of the parking, the.
And I guess thinking
handicap.
about it, 8 foot probably would accommodate other people in the aisle. That's probably why they're,
Not sure why
I
that is.
guess, I don't
think it's
know.
that
It's awfully
The
wide.
van part that comes
Oh,
down
right,
and then
van.
coming
Oh,
out.
Wheelchair would be 5 foot.
The lift and everything in a
Yeah,
van.
the wheelchair would be 5 foot. I
No,
would
but the
assume it's
lift-
for someone to be beside it.
The lift that comes
The
out.
lift that comes out and then you've got to come off the lift with your,
Okay.
with your wheelchair.
I gotcha. Gotcha.
I used to do that.
Interesting little
So you
project.
got your changes written down?
I do. So if Marty wants to make a motion contingent upon adding the 8-foot aisle and removing one car spot and making enough backing room for the others, then
As amended.
as amended. Motion still in place? Do we have a second?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
So Marty Farley has seconded the motion with amendments of making the aisle for the handicap spot 8 foot, removing one car spot and increasing the backing room or shifting the others north for more backing.
And appropriately labeling golf cart parking.
Golf cart parking.
Yeah, that will not be a problem. I don't want vehicles in the front.
Okay. Barney Farley,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Marty Phelan,
Yes.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
Leslie, you have to,
I abstain.
thank you.
I cannot vote on that.
Don't vote no to
You have
yourself.
to officially answer though.
Sorry.
And Chad Schmides.
Yes.
Motion
Now we get to do the fun one.
This should be pretty short.
That was good. That was before work. I got it for a solution.
Yeah.
All right. Item 4.9, discuss Port Aransas City Code of Ordinances, section 25-149, features allowed within required yard setback areas to determine if any adjustments or changes are needed and take action to make appropriate recommendations to city council.
And as the background information says, this is at the request of city council, just to look at the setback issues, particularly the swimming pools were mentioned, cantilever balconies and air conditioning mechanical and pool equipment was called out in the conversation. So, but essentially they wanted to run to P and Z just for discussion.
So what problem are we trying to solve?
I
That's the question.
do not know.
That's the question.
'Cause-
I mean, I'm
'cause
empathetic. I know-
Prescribing the solution doesn't,
Well, I think that there's
To what?
some issues of, with development, with people butting right up to property lines and with overhangs and stuff. And there's probably a few examples of it, right? But I don't know if it's widespread. You know, I mean, I don't want a cure that's worse than the disease, right?
Sure.
So
I mean, you can't go
and-
vertical in setback, right? Is that typically you can't go vertical? So you can't build a structure in the setback.
Correct.
For most, for
Right, I mean-
virtually everything.
The only thing that you're allowed to do in the setback are these 12 things.
Right.
Isn't this something that'd be addressed with a lot of thought and process and study throughout the course of the comprehensive plan update?
It'll be chapters 25 and 21 will be thoroughly looked at,
I
dissected
mean,
and.
because it
and-
seems like we're just kind of ready, fire aim here.
Yeah, I think that's why they sent it to us, to discuss it and stuff and see. I mean, if, to me, I mean, I think the proposal, original, the proposal was like 5 feet, right?
I don't know that
think
they
that-
proposed anything other than to.
But I've heard.
Joellen's here. I mean,
I've heard-
it's,
I've
she's
heard-
on council.
Yeah, what are we trying to solve, Joel?
We could invite,
I was,
Pools right on a fence line.
Because of.
Do we know what
the
the problem is with that?
Well,
Hang on.
well,
Hang
too
on,
many
hang on.
conversations. Could we speak at the mic?
problem for the other people on the other side of the fence.
What is the problem is
So they
what I'm
were
asking?
complaining, you know, they ripped their fence down because it was built right on the fence. It's like just a few inches. When the guys were putting it up and they were doing the concrete, they put, what do you call it? They put the boards up to,
The forms.
yeah, the forms up. And they were nailed to their fence. And so they came out and pulled their whole fence down and the pool is built right on it.
Well, that's a good.
Was
That's
their
a civil
fence
issue.
built on the other property owner's property?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So
So they went
I-
and tore down a fence they thought was theirs on the other person's property?
10-foot setback for pools. They have a 15-foot setback for fire pits and stuff like that. We're not asking for that. We're just trying to get a solution where maybe you can walk behind that pool between a property line.
Like a
But the
foot.
Instead of
state had
being
a
right
1 foot
on it.
limit.
That sounds like it adds more impervious cover. I mean, that's going to create an additional drainage issue for sure.
Well, if you have a 1.
Yeah, it could be grass.
I mean, I don't know.
I thought the state had, yeah, come.
Is this one instance or are we talking about?
Well, the one instance I know of at this point, okay, that was one instance where they put in concrete forms on someone else's fence, and when they took down the forms, they took down the fence, right?
That's-
I don't think that was the situation.
That's not what happened.
All right, well, that's what you're saying.
Who's
No,
saying?
she took down her own fence.
She took
Okay,
down her own.
here's what I know about. On 12th Street, there's a property that's been a big problem. And it had the pools draining, the overflow from the pools draining right onto the next door neighbor's property, onto her driveway. In addition, a lot of the mechanicals were only accessible from the neighbor's side of the fence. So those are some of the things that have brought this to your door, is that some people are pushing the limits so much that it's impacting, once again, their neighbors. And it's encroachment on other people's property, because these people have had a real problem all along with the workmen, with parking, all these kind of things, trash. So they're trying to this is one problem that they know. The problem is that mechanicals and pools are too close to the property line. So they need to take pools out, or they need to set up a amount that the pools have to be set back from the property line. I mean, property has become so valuable here that people are just maxing out whatever they can do. This is a loophole that some have been using, and it's impacting their neighbors. And that's what all this stuff is about.
Where's the mechanical equipment at your home?
It's not my home. It's a
Where-
neighbor down the road.
No, it's your personal home. Where's your mechanical equipment?
It's next to our house,
Okay.
and it's,
As is mine.
Right.
As I'm assuming everybody
right,
else's
it's in a
this room.
side yard. right.
Everybody's in the
But
side.
it's within our setback the setback is beyond our mechanical.
Your mechanical is probably not, it's probably
In the
in the easement. Yeah.
I used to live next door. It is.
I mean, air conditioning company.
No, we've actually had to give the neighbor.
Most people's are
Right.
in a place that would make it economically, like, I mean, if you had to have your system service and this was in place, we would be looking at moving your unit possibly,
No,
depending on how
here's the
this
thing.
is. I
Here's
mean, we're talking, it's not cheap to move an AC unit.
Not
No.
not too many condensing units are against the neighbor's fence.
No, I mean, so are we just getting
But that was-
specific and we
that was
just don't want it
Yeah,
on?
this is
we
one of
just
the
don't
items
want it
that's
on the
been
back-
addressed.
The back easement of a property, is that the issue?
That was just, that's what
We
came
watched the
up.
last council meeting, specifically mechanical units
Yeah.
were addressed.
And,
Yes.
and cantilevered porches. I guess that's the next question.
We don't-
What's the problem with the cantilevered porch?
When we don't want the AC unit, I mean, really, you don't want it in the backyard and you don't want it in the front yard. It is a safety issue.
No,
I mean, with
all I'm
children and
saying is,
whatnot.
I'm trying to give you the example of what happened that has brought this to your attention.
There's unintended
Because you didn't know.
consequences, though.
What's that?
There can be some serious unintended consequences. I mean,
Yeah, but
this
when
really
they're
needs to
right
be.
on the property line, that's the problem.
My understanding.
At this location that I was aware of, these things are right on the property line, and that's what the problem has been.
Can we find
Yeah.
out, maybe ask the city attorney or something? My understanding, I was told, I haven't validated it, that there's a state law that requires a 1 foot easement on the back ends of properties. Is that not true?
I don't think so.
No?
In a
No.
home rule city, I'm not aware of that in an incorporated municipality.
Okay.
I know for mechanical,
There's no state rule.
the code
Okay.
for us, you
All right.
have to just be able to get around the units.
Have
And
access.
and that, yeah, you have to have access to it.
You have to have
So
access to it.
typically you wouldn't find an AC right on the property line. That would be against state code.
Mr. Lorette, would you like to speak?
They would?
No, You have to be able, you
I
have to
don't
be able to
think
get
that
over
there's
the
really
unit.
been a problem that addressed. I
Right.
think one complaint to a citizen or to a council member, I don't think justifies changing the whole rules. We have 3,000 size lots in Port Street. Those are for full-time affordable housing in Port Street for local people. If you take away that setback, those local people are not going to be able to build pools. If a house burns down and you have to bring in your HVAC, you're building a smaller house because it won't fit on those setbacks. This is, if you're going to consider it, don't consider it tonight. Have a meeting with some other citizens. I mean, pools are as American as apple pie. And taking away that from not only short-term rentals or permanent residents is ridiculous. One complaint.
Yeah.
One complaint.
I don't know how widespread the issue is, but the idea of a workshop or something
It's a
makes sense to
discussion.
me.
Well, then discuss it.
I think it'll be best.
But not discuss it in front of P and Z for it to go to council and for them to run it through real quick.
Well,
Go outside of it like you did when enough people complained about the short-term rental being an issue. They formed a committee or they formed a group. Take this opportunity to reach out to all of these people that live in this community. That's the responsibility of P and Z and that's the responsibility of the council.
You mind stating your name and your address, please? For the,
I am Michelle Lorette proudly, and I live at 413 Mustang Boulevard.
Thank you, Michelle. So I would recommend we kick this to the comprehensive plan for debate, discussion, analysis, to really make sure that we've got our ducks in a row.
Data.
I would like to chime in on this. The reason we're here is those two swimming pools. Nobody cares about the condensing units or the decks, the uncovered decks, the swimming pool equipment.
What swimming pools?
It's about the swimming pool.
over on White Avenue.
329.
329 White.
That's what it's all about, okay? Okay, so it's,
Next most hated houses in town.
huh?
Yeah.
Actually, Cecil Fox too has complained about them building the pool next door.
So are we?
Yeah,
So-
I'm sure y'all could come up with a huge list of that. Yeah.
Well, not in my mind.
Come up with
What
another
started it was the pools. I don't know who's agitating for changing everything else.
What's the problem with the pool though?
Okay.
I mean, besides the one that was,
Okay.
the form that was attached to
Let me,
the fence that.
let me lay
sure it's
this
easy to
out.
fix.
There's swimming pools, and then there's party pools. These are two party pools up against, they're right on the property line.
So, but
What are the
Did
differences?
the existing ordinance differentiate between a party pool and a swimming pool?
I don't know what a party pool is, but
I'm
Yeah.
differentiating
Okay,
it
what
right
is it?
now. I don't know about an ordinance. I know it's legal.
what is it? I don't know.
I mean, you can have
I
the
don't know the
bikini
term.
pool and a fully clothed pool.
No,
too,
let's
right?
say, no,
I know that term.
okay, let me start at the beginning again. I think you say you're limiting your houses to 14 people.
I have,
Yeah, where you could put more in.
actually, we've limited 1 to 10 and 1 to 14.
Right, and then I think Adam Richard was talking about, he said, mine, I'm not gonna max out my house. I'm gonna hold it at like 12 or 14 or whatever. Okay, if every house is full, that's a possibility of having 42 people in there. And 28 of them, possibly it could be in those two pools back there. Okay. So that's a party pool. You're back there playing. Of course, they're not drinking at all. They're not shouting, they're not having fights or anything like
This is like
that.
an ordinance issue?
Is that what you are proposing is the issue? So when
That's
when his boy has a birthday party and he has 15 of his friends over, I'm just trying to understand and make sure.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying is a problem, to have people
Okay.
in a pool in somebody's backyard?
And would
I've
1
seen
foot
he has
difference from a
one
back
birthday
setback
a
or 5
year.
foot make a difference to the noise?
I'm sorry?
Would, if that pool is 5 feet from the back fence or 1 foot from the back fence, would that,
Noise
Yeah.
travels.
would that change anything?
Well, I
Yeah.
worry,
Yeah, not
the
only-
trampolines and kids swing sets I just want to make sure we know where we're going.
I mean, it
I have
does
that on
have
my
the
list. I
potential to
guess
be
I
a
need to move my
slippery
kids'
slope.
trampoline
That's
off the
my
sidewalk.
concern with it.
What is your concern?
That it has the potential to be a slippery slope. I mean, I would have liked to have we're just talking about pools in the setback, but it's just, this is kind of vague. That's the problem I have with it. And when you listen, I'm just like with the mechanical equipment, sure, we could move it or make sure that there's space for it and whatnot, but that definitely hurts any of the existing houses. Because I'm serious, if we have to move equipment, it starts getting expensive. And I mean, we have hurricanes, stuff has to be replaced. Eventually somebody's going to feel the pain from this. I don't think that we're really looking at, and if there's an issue with noise complaints or whatnot, then that should be addressed, that way with the noise ordinance. This has the potential, even if we just started at pools, it could get out of hand with decks and whatnot. And
Okay.
I don't know. I think that this requires a little bit more examination than us just having a brief discussion about it this evening.
I'm still back where you are. I need a problem. I need a problem.
We need the why. 3 one-off situations does not constitute a problem. I know all the phone calls I got this week weren't from short-term renters or developers or my clients. It was from people that live in Channel Vista, out on the highway, like, hey, we're getting ready to build a pool. And what WTF? What's going on here? I'm like, I don't know. Because in Channel Vista, I mean, you don't have the room to build a pool in the backyard unless you're in your setback.
I like the idea.
You don't have them.
I like the idea of having a comprehensive plan and the community involved, but even at that, you have to have a problem statement, right?
Sure.
I mean,
So I guess we need city council to tell us what the problem is.
Let me make something clear that I'm not suggesting you can't put a pool on a fence. And if you put it 5 feet away, you're still going to get the noise and the light. Okay, so there's
and the drainage.
I've got a pool in my backyard, which I don't, and our grandkids are over or whatever. These guys are going at it every night. So it's here it is in a residential setting, and these people are right up practically in your yard. So
Are they short-term or long-term?
Well, the pools are are short-term and the neighbors are long-term. Although their property is rated commercial, but they live there residentially. It's a residential neighborhood, a residential area.
Dakota, did you want to say something real quick? Name and address, please. Just
Chad Grove, 129 South Go. And I'm sorry, I know I had my 3 minutes already, but I'm the new kid here. I get it. Only been here a couple of years, my first meeting. But as in watching everything that's gone on, and with respect to both sides of these ongoing arguments about growth, it's like, I feel like so many issues are getting conflated. And I feel like there's just this like visceral feeling on both sides. And it's like, now we're talking about defining what kind of pools, there are. And it almost seems like the issue is they're bad actors who are not following the existing rules that apply. And no offense to anybody, but it seems like a lot of rules that are in place are not being enforced. And I don't know if that's an issue of like budgetary things or whatever it is, but if we're going to go down this path and say like, let's pit everybody against each other, like I feel like people like me are just stuck in the middle between people who say, no to everything and people who say, let's just pay paradise. And like, my kid just wants a pool. Like, so if we're going to start deciding types of pools and like, let's have a Francis Crowe pool, and like define that somehow so that we can.
Has to be a non-party pool.
He's often naked in the pool. So I don't know how that works.
That is a funny pool.
But anyway,
But your point of conflating issues.
Yeah, I mean, is it noise or is it issues that are like, and I'm speaking way out of school here. This is not my lane, but it's just like, you read the paper and you talk to people and it just seems like, what, is the answer to stop all building, is the answer to build everything, or is the answer to like say, you guys are all here to make rules and to set boundaries and whatnot. And if those things aren't being enforced, then why, why, if I'm going to abide by the rules and then some other guy's not a few blocks away, why am I going to be punished for his, irresponsibility? And why is that guy somehow not being held to account?
Channel Vista has no short-term rentals. It's all long-term residents. It's police officers and teachers and hardworking people. And a lot of people have pools in there because it's hot in the summer. I mean, I have a pool. I love my pool. But now they wouldn't be able to build pools.
Yeah.
Based on what we're trying to talk about here, because
So can we get from the city exactly? Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Can
you.
can we get from the city exactly what problems have been reported and what issues that you've seen regarding this?
With respect to pools, the only thing, and again, there's been a phenomenal explosion in pool growth since the hurricane. I mean, hundreds of permits. And I'd venture to say 95% of those, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, 95, maybe more, are all pools that are in the setback. It's just what's left of somebody's property to recreate in. And it doesn't matter. It's where you're going to put a trampoline. It's where I'm going to put my kid's swing set, which I did. It's where I'll put a pool if I want to swim. But out of all of those, other than the one issue, and let's be clear, we talked with both parties. The claim that the
This is
forum,
329 White?
yeah,
Okay.
the claim that the forum was encroaching upon the property was never substantiated. They assured me that they had a survey. We welcomed them to please come in. And the moment that I had that, I would stop construction until it was reconciled. They never produced that. So I physically visited the site more than one occasion. So the property line dispute is a question. But out of all those pools, we've not identified any problems with those. And certainly never, I've not had one mechanical equipment, be it pools, be it pool equipment, condensing units. We've never had one either building department related, and I also obviously oversee code enforcement. And we do enforce noise, and all those ordinances are in place. Typically, noise is enforced by police because of the nature of those complaints. But there is no complaint against the party pool beyond excessive noise, unreasonable noise, and those kind of things. But frolicking in the backyard's not a code violation yet.
But property line disputes aren't the city's business anyways.
Those
right?
are civil issues.
Those are civil issues for the.
However, when there's an active construction project, I can take my authority and say, look, we're going to stop until we get this cleared up.
Right.
And I give both parties a chance, and I'm a pretty reasonable, intelligent guy. So when I got somebody telling me they got a survey that shows there's an encroachment, obviously my answer is please bring it to me. And the moment I have that in my hands, I will stop until. So it was never forthcoming. So
let me just ask this though. I'll try to play devil's advocate a little bit. If Barney's my neighbor and I really don't like him, and I put my pool right on the property line and it needs service, and he says you ain't getting access to my property, Fallon.
Okay.
Then it's the burden is on that property owner that has the problem to service it through their own, right?
Once again, all I can do is answer Mr. Scott's question. Out of the hundreds of pools we permitted since the hurricane, that's not come up.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and try.
And all I can do is tell you the facts as I know them now, as you ask them.
So we did have the issue on 12th Street of the pool draining onto the other property.
That's a
but
whole different
been
issue.
Rectified. I mean, what they did wasn't.
It was wrong.
Was wrong,
Yeah.
and they fixed it.
Have you ever had?
That's no different than their
actually had
washing
a-
machine draining out onto somebody's property.
Yeah.
I actually had a pool guy pick the wrong stake. The pool was 14 inches at the back corner into the neighbor's property. It was brought to me as a problem, and so I just bought the lot next door and built a house on it with a pool.
Yeah.
And we replatted, and all is fine.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter to us. I mean, but we have, as I've said multiple times, we have the ordinances that we adhere to now. If it's the pleasure to change them, then we'll enforce those. But we haven't had any issues thus far, other than the one person that didn't like the pool being closed.
Well, I mean, I just.
Have you had complaints that Cecil, that Cecil had about pools, people needing pools, and then all of a sudden she had flooding problem in her house. Is she, have other people claimed that?
No, but she's still here. The first thing she led with, I wrote it down, has had drainage issues forever, you know. And again, and a lot of people I hear that from, and they want to say that they want to use that, anything that happens around them to say it's making it worse. We may not catch everything, but we do our very best to ensure that they don't make it worse. If it gets worse, the problem invariably is the person who identifies their drainage is getting worse probably didn't have a great drainage plan to begin with. And it's not that the new construction's making it worse. And this is exactly the situation at White Street. It isn't that the new construction's making their situation worse. It's that their drainage plan just hasn't kept up or wasn't ever in place, and their water's no longer migrating onto the neighbors. That's the issue 80% of the time when there's an issue based on new construction against older construction.
But what Cecil said was that we've always had extra water there, but now it's into our house down below in the last 5 years. My question was, is she the only one who's said that to you?
Look at the corner of Trojan and I want to say it's C.
See, I lived.
That's like at
To be
5.5
fair,
feet
I
above
lived
sea level.
there.
New
For,
FEMA standards won't let you build any less than 9 feet. So when you, of course, if you build something in there or the whole house got raised after Harvey or something, you got to go to 9 feet and you have to drain it all toward the street. But it's not the fault of the property owner that the one next door is sitting at 5.5 feet. You know how that corner right there floods always.
So if you
5.5 feet above sea level where everything else has to be at 9.
prior to the hurricane, those were on the ground and they flooded. And so she raised them up a little bit just so they would stop flooding. They flooded during the hurricane. They flooded while we lived there. After the hurricane, she demoed those houses, had to rebuild them. You can see that those are on elevated structures now because they were built too low to begin with.
In the last 10 years, and besides the hurricane, we've had 2 500-year rains that we've never had. And at the end of the day, we're still on a barrier island.
They changed all the flood maps in your neighborhood. So all the new houses are sitting 18 inches higher than all the existing houses because they changed the flood maps. So those people have to do retaining walls and everything else to make sure it directs toward the street.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if I build my house, again, and maybe this is for the broader conversation too. I don't know if the city is responsible for solving civil disputes, right? I mean, if I built my house fully in code and then the codes change and Barney builds his fully in code, that's what the courts are for, right? Is to do that because I didn't do anything wrong and he didn't do anything wrong, but things change and that's where and hopefully neighbors can resolve it, right? But I don't know if it's the responsibility of the city council through ordinances to address those types of things that are the one-offs. I'm still struggling with the problems there. I really am.
Right there with you.
All right, we had our discussion. What are we going to recommend?
I recommend that nothing changes until we have identified a problem that we could actually solve through proposals.
And I really don't want to push something back to staff and say, hey, I want you guys to spend 200 man hours searching out something. You've already said a lot, but this is, it sounds like we've had two one-off event that sparked this whole
Again,
thing.
you have
A
two,
lot of locals.
yeah, you have 2 members that are part of the comprehensive plan. If this is if there is an issue or if it's just merits discussion as they start to look at these chapters.
We could take that. That's probably a good place to park this.
If it was and I'd be the first one to tell you if there was a life safety issue, if there was something that was pending.
Because that engages everybody, right?
Yeah.
Right, then I'd say, we tackle it earlier, but again, we just haven't seen anything.
And I don't mean to cut you off. You guys all know that I'm very much about Texas property rights. And, I mean, we have setbacks on homes for a specific reason. It's mostly fire, safety, things like that, parking. But when you go say, okay, you can't use the last 10 feet of your property, it's your property still. I don't care if there's a setback there or not. You can't, it's like he said, I can't put my kid's trampoline back there anymore. I mean, it's still my property. I mean, at that point, why you put an alley behind every house and let the city take that and then you butt right up to the alley.
Save some taxes.
No doubt. I mean, but you just start.
Swing sets or anything.
But it's as Leslie said, it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope and it's
Slippery slope, so that's why we send it here.
Without any identification of what the problem was. Zero identification.
we've heard of flooding and, on the fence lines, people, and other people don't agree that it's okay to be on the fence line.
Okay, one issue, one complaint.
So,
And everybody, I think, says we need more.
Well,
There hadn't been enough
I would
issues to,
proper research, like, hey, this is why this flooding happened because of this pool here, but without a hydrology study to show the drainage and everything else.
And just because you can't put the pool on the fence, let's say we change the setback, doesn't mean that you can't build a nice concrete walkway that's gonna flood your neighbor's house.
that's true.
True.
Yeah.
Well, or the wall, I mean, like I said, then you look at walls, right now you can put your fence right, your fence, you don't want to see your neighbor, so you put your fence right on your property line, wall, block.
I think this is a good place part would be the comprehensive plan, because we can't be the only city struggling with it. And Texas is a big property right state, right?
Sure.
And so,
There's
and
not
then,
a-
and we get community involvement.
yeah. I
Well-
guess, like the other pool had the overflow drain into Susan's driveway, and then they couldn't get to their own equipment.
That's typically solved with a rubber hose.
I'm sorry?
That's typically solved with a rubber hose.
Okay, but it wasn't, it was PVC that.
So
But they
the
sell-
the
but they
workaround
sell
is what you do is you cut off the PVC, you attach a rubber hose to it, and then you can redirect where the flow goes.
Hopefully they did that.
I just know
I've seen
that
me do it.
the only place that, like Alamo Heights, I think it is in San Antonio, where we've had anything with the setbacks, they don't want the units in the front of the yards. And it's an older neighborhood, they're small lots.
I
and
used to have a house there.
It's a royal pain in the rear to do the AC units.
But
And
Alamo
it
Heights
really- and
is-
you really do not want an air
Small
conditioning unit in your
incorporated
backyard.
area.
You do not want it there. It's loud.
And HOAs
And
can
you-
do that.
on your
HOAs
roof.
in these areas have that authority to do that.
Yeah, it's,
And they can be stricter than us.
I
And
mean,
some are.
but it is, you don't want kids around your AC units. You just don't. And you don't want it in your front yard. I mean, and then there's, in addition to that, there's codes with how far an AC unit can be placed next to your front door and whatnot. It really does limit where you can put it if a setback, because I honestly don't think that these houses are gonna get smaller. They'll just get creative with where they're putting the mechanical, and we do not want the AC units in the front yard.
No,
It'll be very
We
tricky.
could do away with all mechanical.
Yeah, we could,
No
but
AC.
I have-
No
I
AC.
know-
Nobody's allowed to have
Just-
AC.
I bought a property
No
that doesn't
family
have air
or just
conditioning.
no
Trust
AC
me, we want
units,
AC in
But
it.
you can have a pool, it just can't be a party pool. That's where you cool off.
You know, AC guy?
I know an AC guy. That was.
All right.
Rick used that
Motion to
term a while
adjourn?
ago.
Oh, well, we have one more.
Oh,
Yeah, but also, what was?
You said it. I heard you
Comprehensive
say it.
plan update.
Was this the?
So there's no action needed unless you guys choose to.
No. Item 4.10, update on comprehensive plan, Commissioners Phelan and Smith.
Yeah, so bear with me for a second.
It's not me.
No,
I
so
accepted it, so-
the next comprehensive plan advisory committee meeting will be held Wednesday, May 18th at 6 o'clock at City Hall. The in-person open house was held on February 23rd, and the virtual alternative ran from February 10th through March 10th. They extended it at the request of City Council. And the complete public input results is available on the website if you're curious about that. And they're currently updating the draft principles and goals. So essentially what they've done in a nutshell and put it in layman's terms, gathered all this information, opened up the website, extended the opportunity for the website, and they're essentially collating data. And they're on schedule and on target. And that's where
Please
the
look at the
calendar-
portal. It's
Erica, that's
it's pretty good.
Yeah, that was a.
It's on the front page of, just go to cityofportlands.org. It's a big pop-up plan and it'll take you right to that portal, that splash screen. And I'm sorry, you say the next meeting, Marty, May 8th?
Yeah. Sure. Come your way around.
I think that's what it was.
I think it's
May
like
18th.
I think, yeah, I kept thinking it was the 17th, but I don't,
It is.
I'm out of that now.
May 18th, 6 o'clock.
And again, same thing, they'll do for those that can't attend in person, they'll do a virtual, everything that you'll be able to do at that meeting, they'll have the ability to do online and input, feedback, write on virtual charts, all that stuff too. So they're good about that.
Item
Motion to
number,
adjourn?
no,
Motion to adjourn.
we got number 5.
Second, third, fifth.
But item number 5, planning and zoning commission comments and items for future consideration.
So
Yes, I
you
have
do
one.
it.
I do have one. On the island mooring, the plat came in
Oh, yes.
5.5 or whatever.
The
in there.
triangle.
Can you annotate in there to re-reviewed the drainage in there. I didn't do it here tonight because it was really taking the hammerhead into the cul-de-sac. But before it goes for final approval, because I did have concerns, and I'll take it offline to some people too, to
Sure.
make sure they get it, but just annotate it that we want to re-review that piece.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yeah, and yeah, it's just, well, I'll talk to you.
We'll talk offline, but yeah, that just, I had some concerns about that.
With that, call to adjourn. Motion to adjourn, second?
Yeah.
We call adjourn City of Port Aransas Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Tuesday, March 29th at 8:26 p.m.
These proceedings are closed.
Next time, she sits in there and texts the entire freaking meeting. I'm going to the city council meeting. I'm just gonna sit there and do this all. You have to remember, she even has the flag.
I think I have a.
I think I teach my children.